Chapter 2655 Master Yang. To Yang Kai, this array card was just tasteless, and even to the South Gate army, it was easily refined, so it wasn't too expensive. But it's different for Ban Lao and Xiaoling. Ban Lao is only at the first level of Daoyuan now. How can he not be shocked when he sees a formation card that can trap even the third level of Daoyuan? In other words, such a formation card is enough to kill him thousands of times. What's more, this array card was also produced by the Nanman army. It is definitely the best of the best, and it is enough to protect Xiaoling for a long time during her growth. Ban Lao couldn't help but panic in his heart. He deserved to accept such a valuable thing, especially since Yang Kai didn't quite deal with this Nanman Grandmaster, so he couldn't take it. But before he opened his mouth to refuse, Yang Kai put down the jade pendant and said, "Since it is for Xiaoling, then keep it." The Nanman army was overjoyed when they heard the words. Knowing that their strategy of saving the country with curves was considered a success, they couldn't help laughing. Ban Lao had a complicated expression, and clasped his fists and said, "Little old Dai Linger, I would like to thank this master for his kindness." "You're welcome, old man. If you need any help from me in the future, just ask." After Nanman Daijin was in a good mood, he wrapped up his bag. Anyway, Mr. Ban is an honest person at first glance. Whether he will have the cheek to ask him for help in the future is a matter of two opinions. The words are left here, to give Yang Kai a good impression. Facts have proved that his approach is indeed effective. Yang Kai restrained his previous indifference, slightly nodded and said, "Master Nanman has a heart." Nanman Daijin smiled heartily and said, "Young Master Yang is flattering you." I was slightly relieved, but I also knew that it is not appropriate to force too much now, so I simply did not mention the matter of the zhenwu 7-section formation in the wild ancient land, and just stood aside and waited quietly. Looking left and right, the eyes of the Nanman army were suddenly attracted by a magic circle. This is a small island in the ice lake, where the space magic circle that Yang Kai arranged before is located. When the South Gate army first arrived, they only cared about Yang Kai's attitude and didn't see anything else at all. Now that they were relaxed, they could see the extraordinariness of this magic circle at a glance. He sighed lightly in his mouth, walked towards the space magic circle with great interest, and looked around the space magic circle. After a while, the Nanman army seemed to have discovered something extraordinary, and suddenly exclaimed. A pair of eyes burst into an astonishing light, and they rushed directly to the magic circle, reaching out to touch here, look there again, and after a while said in horror, "Cross-domain space magic circle." I don't know where he saw this, but he immediately concluded that this is a cross-domain space magic circle. In an instant, the complexion of Nanman Daijin turned red, which was the expression of extreme excitement. The light in his eyes became brighter, and he studied with one mind, with an extremely focused expression. At this moment, for the Nanman army, there is only this cross-domain space magic circle left in the whole world, and nothing else can interfere with him. As time goes by, he frowns from time to time, as if encountering when he encountered a problem. He smiled from time to time, and even laughed slyly like a psycho. There are not many cross-domain space magic circles in the entire star world. They are all treasures left over from ancient times, and these cross-domain space magic circles are all controlled by the sects created by those great emperors. Even looking at the entire northern territory, there is no cross-domain space magic circle. It can be said that the cross-domain space magic circle is extremely precious in the star realm. Even if the South Gate army is somewhat famous, there is no way to find one to study. The Nanman army never expected that he could see one in Bingxin Valley. This was his luck and his chance. If he can crack the secret of this cross-domain space magic circle, with his ability, maybe he can really reproduce it. At that time, it will be the gospel of the entire star realm, and his name of the South Gate army will definitely resound throughout the star realm. It doesn't matter about fame or anything, the main thing is that if you can make a breakthrough with the help of this ancient array, you will die without regret. There is a specialization in the art industry, and for people like Nanman Daijin, the attraction of a cross-domain space magic circle is stronger than anything else. Wonderful, wonderful. After a long time, Nanman Daijin stood up slowly, full of admiration in his mouth, although he didn't know what he saw, but the color of admiration on his face was obvious. As soon as he raised his head, he looked at Yang Kai and said, "Young Master Yang, you are familiar with Bingxin Valley, do you know who arranged this thing?" "What's wrong?" Yang Kai asked curiously. The army of the South Gate pondered for a while, and explained, I can be sure that this is a cross-domain space magic circle, and the formation concept is also extremely exquisite and unparalleled, which is rare in the world, but... Just what? Yang Kai frowned. It's just that this technique feels a bit jerky, and it's not right. If he can arrange such an exquisite and incomparable formation, then this person's attainment in the way of formation will definitely not be too low, and it will undoubtedly be several times higher than this one level, but why does it give me a feeling of not being proficient? Nanman Daijin didn't know whether he was explaining to Yang Kai or talking to himself, and talked for a while, shaking his head and saying, I don't understand, really I can't figure it out. No wonder he couldn't figure it out. Although he has good eyesight and recognizes that this is a cross-domain space magic circle, but I am afraid that he would never have thought that this magic circle came from the hands of Yang Kai. What he said is correct, the concept of this formation is indeed ingenious and unparalleled. It is rare in the world, because the conception and formation of the law is from Yang Yan, the person who set up the formation is Yang Kai, and Yang Kai is not proficient in formations the way, only knows how to arrange this formation, so it seems jerky in some small details. The reason is that when Yang Kai arranged the formation, he knew it but didn't know why, he just followed Yang Yan's instruction, and he didn't have his own insights on the way of the formation. The thing that confuses me the most is, this formation doesn't look like it was inherited from ancient times, but it seems to have been arranged recently. The army of the South Gate frowned, and laughed again after finishing speaking said, maybe I misread it. Even he himself doesn't quite believe this judgment. As we all know, the method of arranging the cross-domain space magic circle has long been lost. Now who has the ability to arrange such a cross-domain space magic circle? Master Nanman really has good eyesight. Just then, a voice came. Everyone turned their heads and looked, only to see a group of yin-yang, yan-yan, yan, thin, round and fat women with different temperaments coming over. They were a group of emperors in Bingxin Valley. The leader is naturally Bing Yun. Yang Kai, Nanman Daijin and others hurriedly saluted. Although Ban Lao has never seen Bing Yun, but after hearing Yang Kai's greetings, how could he not know that this unparalleled beauty in front of him is the owner of Bingxin Valley? At that moment, he dragged Xiaoling to salute in fear. A strange look flashed in Bing Yun's eyes. He didn't know why Yang Kai brought an old man over, but he didn't ask any more questions. He just stretched out his hand and lifted Ban Lao up, and said, don't be too polite. Glancing at Xiaoling, Bing Yun smiled and said, what a spiritual little girl, Yang Kai, where did you come from? Yang Kai smiled slightly, told Ban Lao and Xiaoling the origins, and then said, Senior, I want Xiaoling to worship in Bingxin Valley to practice, is it convenient? Bing Yun nodded and said, what's the inconvenience? There are quite a few disciples who are similar to her age in the valley, let's practice together with them in the future. Ban Lao was overjoyed when he heard the words, and excitedly said, hurry up, Xiaoling pays homage to Master Jiyu. As he spoke, he gave the little girl a push. The little girl was also clever. She knelt down immediately, and said crisply, Ling pays homage to Valley Master, and to all seniors. Sure enough, she is a spiritual little girl. A strange look flashed in Bing Yun's eyes. He stretched out his hand to pull her up, and turned around, Yinger, make arrangements for her. Chang Sun Ying came out of the queue and came to Xiaoling and said a few words in a soft voice, only to see Xiaoling nodding her head repeatedly. After a while, Xiaoling turned around and said, Grandpa, take care of yourself, Xiaoling will visit you when she is free. Elder Ban's eyes were moist. He suppressed the reluctance in his heart, and waved his hands. Go, go, Grandpa will live in Binglan City in the future, practice hard, don't let seniors worry about it. Xiaoling was dragged by Chang Sun Ying, and she walked away step by step. Xiaoling can enter Bingxin Valley, Ban Lao should be happy. Yang Kai comforted him. Happy, the little old man is so happy. Ban Lao raised his sleeves and wiped the corners of his eyes. Although he thought that with Yang Kai's guarantee, it should not be difficult for the little girl to worship in Bingxin Valley, but now it is really so easy to achieve his wish, which still makes him grateful. Senior Bingyan, what did you mean when you came here just now? The army of the South Gate held back for a while, and now they finally had time to ask, could it be that this cross-domain space magic circle was really set up recently? You should ask Yang Kai about this matter. Bing Yun smiled slightly, and looked aside meaningfully. What? The South Gate army was quite surprised, looked at Bing Yun, then looked at Yang Kai, and said suspiciously, Senior, what do you mean? This space magic circle was arranged by young Master Yang. Senior Bing Yun is not joking, right? Bing Yun said. Anyway, I didn't have this thing before in Bingxin Valley. More than a month ago, Yang Kai asked me for a lot of Void Spirit Crystal and Void Spirit Jade, and then I got it. The words have already been said very clearly, and with Bing Yun's identity and status, he wouldn't make such a joke with him. The South Gate Army suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Yang Kai. He was absent-minded for a long time before excitedly saying, "Young Master Yang." No, Master Yang. Please accept the next obeisance, Master." As he spoke, he really bowed to the ground with a correct attitude. If it is said that the South Gate Army had no choice but to please Yang Kai because of various private thoughts before, then it is really worshipped now, and can arrange a cross-domain space formation, then Yang Kai's attainments in the formation are definitely not what he can do. Comparable. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2656. There are 3,000 roads, and those who reach them are the first. The Nanman army mistakenly thought that Yang Kai was really some kind of reclusive expert, and they really admired him in their hearts. Master Yang hid it so deeply. I was so rude before going down. I hope Master Yang will forgive me. Nanman Daijin smiled wryly, sincerely convinced. Yang Kai's face was slightly red, but he didn't bother to explain too much to him. He just said, "This space magic circle is indeed arranged by me, but it's not what you think. Master Yang is too modest, but he is playing tricks in his previous class." Yang Kai shook his head, ignored him, turned to look at Bing Yun and said, "Senior, how about the casualties?" Bing Yun sighed slightly, and said, "Thousands of disciples died, and more than half of them were injured. Although the loss is not small, it is a fortunate ending, thanks to you and the 3 demon kings." Although Yang Kai hadn't participated in the battle much, the soul-devouring insects he released had done a great job. If there were no soul-devouring insects, the casualties in Bingxin Valley would have been at least several times higher. After all, the enemy's base it is too huge, relying on the Emperor's senior realm and the 3 demon kings on the side of Bingxin Valley, it is really impossible to kill. It's different when the soul-devouring insect is dispatched. Wherever the insect cloud passes, people from Wenqing sect fall in pieces, which can be described as a large-scale killing weapon. Ask how about Qingzong? Yang Kai asked again. Half of the 100,000 people died, 20,000 to 30,000 escaped, and some of them surrendered. Yang Kai heard the words and nodded. This result was expected. But from now on, Wenqing sect, a behemoth, has completely declined. In the sect, from the suzerain down, the emperor level is almost dead. Even if there are strong people staying in the sect, I'm afraid it won't be a big deal. What are your plans next, senior? Bing Yun said. First settle down the injured disciples, and the guardian array will also be repaired. As for those who surrendered, it's a bit difficult. There were 20,000 to 30,000 warriors who surrendered, and killing them all would cause some bad consequences, but letting them go like this would make Bingxingu easy to bully, so Bingyan hesitated. After all, among those people, only a small part of them belonged to Wenqing sect, and the others were recruited by Wenqing sect during this period, and they didn't have any deep hatred with Bingxingu. Yang Kai snorted coldly. Death crimes can be avoided, life crimes cannot escape, and they can be released, but they have to suffer a little bit. Bing Yun nodded and said, I think so too. While the two were talking, the army of the South Gate suddenly said, Senior Bingyan, do you want to restore the great formation of the protecting sect? I can do my best. Bing Yun smiled and said, I have this intention, I'm afraid Master Nanman is not willing. Willing, how can you not? Nanman Daijin looked happy, and while speaking, he looked at the space magic circle over there. Yang Kai didn't know what he was thinking, and said, as long as you can restore the Bingxin Valley's protector array, you can study this cross-domain space array as you want. Anyway, this thing was arranged by him with the help of space magical powers. No matter how thorough the research of the South Gate Army is, it cannot be copied, and Yang Kai is not afraid of being stolen by him. Nanman Daijin's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Master Yang. He really regarded Yang Kai as a formation master who was even more powerful than himself. Senior, I'm going to ask the emotion sect. Yang Kai's face suddenly became serious, and a faint murderous intent lingered around him. Hearing the words, Bing Yun understood, nodded and said, then let Yaoer go with you. Yang Kai looked at Ji Yao who was standing behind Bing Yun, nodded and agreed. Without delay, he immediately flew out with Ji Yao, out of the small island of the ice lake, greeted Xile and other 3 demon kings, and went straight out of Bingxin Valley. Young Master Yang, where are we going? Shilei had a straightforward temper, aware of Yang Kai's murderous intent, knowing that he was looking for trouble, so he couldn't help but ask. Ask Love Sect, Yang Kai replied. Zilei and the others understood, they stopped talking and just followed behind Ji Yao. This time, the matter of Bingxin Valley had something to do with Yang Kai, and even in the final analysis, it was Yang Kai's trouble. If he hadn't killed Feng Shi in the Broken Star Sea, there would be no Bingxin Valley besieged later. Now that the senior executives of the emotional sect have been exhausted, although it can be regarded as suffering, Yang Kai obviously has no intention of letting it go. Now that the enmity has been forged, it is natural to cut the weeds and root them out. What's more, Wenqing sect has stood in the Northern Territory for tens of thousands of years, there must be a lot of good things stored in the sect, how could Yang Kai miss it? Not long after, a group of people arrived at Binglan City. Previously, Binglan City was seized by the Wenqing sect, but after today's battle, the Wenqing sect was defeated, and Binglan City changed in an instant. The city was deserted, and there was no one on the bustling streets in the past. He went straight into the city lord's mansion, found the space magic circle, and after placing the source crystal and activated it, the figures of several people disappeared. Asking about the mountains is where the foundation of Wenqingzong stands. It is rumored that the great Emperor Wenqing started from scratch here and established a huge sect, and it was also here that he realized the Tao and became the great emperor. The sect that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years has an extraordinary background. The mountains are undulating, the rocks are jagged, the mountains and rivers are beautiful, and it is a place of outstanding people. In the mountains, there are countless peaks, and the aura of heaven and earth is extremely rich. It is not like Bingxin Valley built in the middle of the ice and snow. The climate in the mountains is suitable, and the fragrance of birds and flowers can be seen everywhere. A day later, when Yang Kai arrived here with a few demon kings and Ji Yao, he saw the Wenqing sect's mountain gate was wide open. Not only did the formation not activate, not even a disciple guarding the mountain gate. With the release of divine thoughts, the entire Wenqing sect is like a ghost, not a single living person can be seen. They run fast. Zilei obviously noticed this too, and couldn't help muttering. With such a large sect, even if Feng Zan took away many disciples and high-level officials, there would definitely be some people stationed in the sect, but now the entire Wenqing sect is nowhere to be seen. No doubt they are warriors who escaped from Bingxin Valley. The news spread out, causing the left-behind disciples of the Wenqing sect to abandon their ancestral business and avoid disaster. In other words, Wenqingzong has been completely wiped out since yesterday. Looking up at the mountain gate, I saw the three big characters Wenqingzong shining on the white jade plaque. It seemed that someone had wiped it all year round, so it was fresh and bright. Yang Kai raised his hand and shattered the plaque. He greeted a few people and walked straight in. Passing along the road, there was no trace of anger, and the attics and pavilions encountered were all in a mess, probably because the disciples of the Wenqing sect moved some valuable things away when they fled. Anyway, along the way, not only can't see people, but even valuable things are gone. Only this huge piece of foundation is left. This place is not bad. The heaven and earth are full of aura, so there should be good earth veins. Zilei looked around and shook his head. Yang Kai smiled slightly, and said, "This is a sect inherited by the great emperor, and the founder is the great emperor himself. If the place is poor, how can it be appreciated? It is estimated that there is no better place in the entire Northern Territory. It's a pity, I still provoke people who shouldn't be provoked." The Wanian Foundation was destroyed like this. Ying Fei sighed. Xie Wuwei rolled his eyes, and suddenly smiled and said, "Young Master Yang, why don't you take over this place, set up your own family, and create a sect? Anyway, this place is now ownerless, and it would be a pity to waste it." As soon as this remark came out, Zilei and Yingfei were stunned. It's not that Yang Kai didn't have the qualifications to establish a sect. After all, he was an emperor senior stage. Well, there is indeed no place more suitable for establishing a sect than here. It's just that the two demon kings didn't know what kind of idea Xie Wuwei was planning, why they suddenly made such a proposal. But neither of them is an idiot, just a change of thought, and then the eyes light up, and they understand Xie Wuwei's plan. Ying Fei also grinned and said, "Brother Xia's proposal is good. If young Master Yang establishes a sect here, I would like to reward the elder Dharma protector or something." Zilei also grinned and said, "It counts as an old cow." Yang Kai turned his head and glanced at them when he heard the words, secretly laughing in his heart, knowing that the three of them are not willing to go back to the ancient land, and just want to be by his side. I don't have such a big face to recruit the 3 demon kings, but Zhang Ruoxi has it. Knowing in my heart, Yang Kai didn't point it out, just said, aren't you afraid that a few holy venerables will find me to settle accounts? I don't have the guts to poach their corners. How could it be? Xie Wuwei chuckled, the saints are not stingy people, young Master Yang will tell them when the time comes, and they will naturally agree. Yes, the saints are reasonable. Ying Fei also echoed. If ordinary people want to poach their corners, the holy venerables don't know if they are reasonable or not. Anyway, it will be no problem for Yang Kai to say it. Let's see it again. Yang Kai pondered for a while, but didn't say anything dead. When the 3 demon kings heard this, their eyes lit up, and they secretly felt that this matter was promising, and they cheered up. Xie Wuwei's sudden proposal made Yang Kai quite moved. As they said, this place is excellent, and it is ready-made, even if Yang Kai doesn't want it, I'm afraid it won't be long before it will be occupied by other forces. After all, this is where Yang Kai came down. Although he didn't see a living person here, the empty situation is entirely due to him. Since it was the territory he had laid down by himself, there was no reason to give it away. What's more, Yang Kai feels that he has been in the star realm for so many years, has been wandering, and has no stable place to go. It doesn't matter when I am alone, if I take those relatives and friends from Gloomy Star over in the future, what should they do? There are also Chiyu Ghost Ancestor and others, you can't let them stay in Chenyiezong all the time, can you? Prepare a place to stay early, and it will be convenient for them to move in and practice. So Xie Wuwei's unintentional words really made Yang Kai tempted. But he also knows that it is not such a simple matter to establish a sect and establish a sect. It was a coincidence that the Lingxiao sect was successfully established on the Dark Star. Now if you want to gain a foothold in the star realm again, you need to think carefully. Chapter 2657 Treasure House. Wen Qingzong's foundation covers a vast area, and Yang Kai took Ji Yao and others around here for 2 full days before finally leaving this huge foundation. The more he watched, the more satisfied Yang Kai was with this place. He said before that this place might be the place with the strongest aura in the northern region, and it was only because of the great name of Emperor Wenqing, but now it seems that this may be true. Because the cultivation environment here is much better than that of Qingyang Temple. Qingyang Temple is also a top sect. In terms of status and strength, it is almost the same as Wenqing sect, but it is still slightly inferior in this environment. I am afraid that only those sects founded by the great emperors can compete with Wenqing sect. With such a foundation, there are so many ready-made buildings, and the legacy of Wenqing sect for tens of thousands of years, Yang Kai became more and more reluctant to hand over to others, and secretly calculated in his heart. Although I walked through many places, I didn't find anything of value. Finally, under the leadership of Ji Yao, several people came to a towering mountain peak. Ji Yao and Bing Yun visited Wenqingzong a few times in the early years, and knew that this mountain peak is the most secret place of Wenqingzong. If Wenqingzong has a warehouse for storing wealth, then this warehouse must be hidden behind this mountain peak. Superior. When Yang Kai and others arrived, they saw a layer of light curtain covering the mountain peak, which seemed extremely solid, obviously because of the restriction formation. This made Yang Kai's eyes brighten, not surprised but delighted. The fact that the light curtain is intact means that no one has breached it since it was opened, if there is anything good inside. Definitely still in it, it would not be taken away by those disciples of Wenqing sect who escaped. Stopping the plan of several demon kings who wanted to use brute force to break the formation, Yang Kai rummaged through the space ring and found several tokens that looked extremely extraordinary, and immediately poured them into Emperor Yuan one by one to test. After a short while, a ray of light radiated from one of the tokens and shot into the light curtain, and the light curtain split instantly. These tokens, they were all found by Yang Kai from the space ring after the death of the high-ranking warriors of the Wenqing sect, especially the token that can open the restriction, which should be the order of the suzerain of Fengzan. Go in and have a look, there are some good things inside. Yang Kai was excited and walked in first. On the mountain peak, there is a temple, which is magnificent and magnificent. Several people entered the palace, only to see that the furnishings and decorations showed a simple style. It seems that the furniture and everything are old, and the traces of the passage of time are obvious. Divine Sense scanned, but found nothing special. Yang Kai pondered for a moment and said, Search separately, if there is anything suspicious, just say hello. Yes. The 3 demon kings dispersed immediately. Ji Yao didn't leave, but just wandered around behind Yang Kai. Are you really going to start a sect here? Walked for a while, Ji Yao suddenly asked. The 3 demon kings are all rough and open-minded people. So I didn't pay much attention to Yang Kai's emotional expression in the past few days, but Ji Yao has been observing silently, and found that Yang Kai was really moved and wanted to start a sect here. I have a little idea. Yang Kai glanced back at Ji Yao, grinned and said, what's wrong? Ji Yao shook her head slightly. It's nothing, but if you want to establish a sect here, it's a good choice. You feel good too, Ji Yao said. Qingqingzong and I, Bingxin Valley, are both in the Northern Territory. If you can take root here, you can also watch and help Bingxin Valley, and you also have the qualifications. Although Yang Kai only has the cultivation base of Emperor Senior Level 1. But Ji Yao knew that his first-level Emperor was not comparable to ordinary people. Even if he fought alone, he was definitely not an opponent. The only people who could fight him in this world were those who were at the 3rd-level Emperor strong. If even he is not qualified to start a sect, then most sects in this world are not qualified to exist. Yang Kai smiled and said, I think so too, but I don't have a complete plan yet, and it must be a lot of trouble to implement it. Ji Yao smiled lightly and said, it's nothing, you can talk to Master when the time comes, she will help you, and Bing Xinggu will also help you. Yang Kai nodded and said, this matter is not urgent, I just simply think about it, if there is a day, I will definitely ask Senior Bingyan to come out of the mountain to give advice. Ji Yao nodded, feeling a little expectation in her heart. Yang Kai has a close relationship with Bingxin Valley, and has a deep relationship with his master Bingyan. Once he really takes root in Wenqing sect's ancestral business, then he can really be a horn of each other with Bingxin Valley, and support each other. When the 2 behemoths are here, who would dare to provoke them? The siege of Bingxin Valley will never happen this time. The reason why Bingxin Valley suffered such catastrophe this time is mainly because it has always been a bit self-styled, has too little communication with the outside world, and has too little relationship with the outside sect forces. But you have to think carefully about the name of this sect, you can't continue to use the name of Wenqing sect. Ji Yao reminded. Yang Kai smiled slightly, nodded and said, I have my own plans. The name of the sect, he already had a secret case. At this moment, an eagle howl suddenly came from one direction. Yang Kai turned his head to look over there, and said, Ying Fei seems to have found something, go and have a look. Ji Yao nodded and followed. After a while, the 2 of them came to a cliff. This cliff stood on top of a mountain peak. It looked inconspicuous, but Ying Fei was looking at it with great interest, and stretched out his hand to pat it from time to time. Shoot here, touch there. Seeing Yang Kai coming, Ying Fei hurriedly said, Young Master Yang, there is something weird here. Hearing this, Yang Kai scanned the cliff in front of him, released his divine sense to investigate, and nodded, it's really weird. This cliff looks inconspicuous at first glance, but in fact, it is covered by extremely clever restrictions, so that people can't find it inadvertently. If Yang Kai came here, he might have ignored it if he was careless, but Ying Fei's body is a giant eagle, not only good at speed, but also has good eyesight, so he can see something wrong all at once. But I don't know if those tokens can unlock this restriction, Ying Fei said with some concern about gains and losses. Try it and you'll know. Yang Kai smiled slightly, and took out the tokens that were looted from the top of Wenqing sect again, and tried one by one. When he was busy, Zilei and Xie Wuwei also rushed over when they heard the voice, and after asking about the situation, they all looked moved, secretly thinking that this place should be the warehouse or the treasure of Wenqingzong. The wealth stored in the top sect that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years is naturally exciting. Facts have proved that the tokens that Yang Kai searched for are really useful, and I don't know which token produced the miraculous effect, just like the restriction on this mountain peak was opened before. After a mysterious light flashed, the cliff in front of him actually boomed. It opened up, revealing a dark passage leading directly to the mountainside. Immediately afterwards, a ray of light suddenly emerged from the corridor, and that ray was like a prairie fire. More and more rays of light bloomed, extending all the way, illuminating the corridor extremely brightly. Let's go, Yang Kai greeted, while carefully checking the surroundings. He walked in first. The others naturally hurried to follow. After entering the corridor, the cliff closed again, but with the surrounding lights embellished, the corridor was still extremely bright. All the way down, I don't know how long I walked, the front suddenly opened up, and a huge underground grotto appeared in everyone's field of vision. After seeing the situation in the grotto clearly, Xie Wuwei took a breath and couldn't help cheering up. It really is a treasure storehouse. Not only him, but the other two demon kings and even Yang Kai were a little restless, but Ji Yao's expression was as usual, as if money was like dung. After all, he is a person who has practiced ice-type kung fu, so if his heart is as clear as ice, he will not be surprised when the sky falls. In this grotto, looking around, there are piles of source crystals like hills blocking the front, low-grade source crystals, middle-grade source crystals and high-grade source crystals, all of which are available and the number is unknown. Yang Kai looked at it at first glance, almost dazzled by the light refracted by the source crystal. Although he made a huge sum of money in the wild ancient land before, and the source crystals he harvested were calculated in units of 100 million, but the number of source crystals in front of him is absolutely huge, even more than what he harvested in the wild ancient land. Many. After all, it is Wenqing sect's accumulation of tens of thousands of years, which is indeed beyond the reach of ordinary sects. Since Yang Kai had already planned to establish a sect here, the more resources he had, the better. When he was able to take over the relatives and friends of Gloom Star, he would not be without practice resources are provided to them. After Yuanjing, there are wooden frames. On the wooden frames, there are countless boxes of various kinds, including wooden boxes, jade boxes, and gold boxes. Yang Kai brought everyone to the wooden frame here, took a few samples to check, and found that the contents of this box were almost the same as what he had guessed. They were all rare medicinal materials, each plant was extremely precious, very old. The demon kings are not interested in medicinal materials, because the wild ancient land is rich in spiritual grasses and wonderful medicines. If you say where you can find the best elixir in this world, the wild ancient land is definitely one of them. So they just took a few glances and didn't pay any more attention. There are also many wooden frames on the other side, but instead of various boxes, there are jade bottles placed on the wooden frames. After Yang Kai investigated, he found that these bottles were filled with refined alchemy pills of different grades, but they were all needed by warriors for cultivation. There were a lot of jade bottles, tens of thousands of bottles. Going further back, there are various secret books in the collection, and many untold secrets of Wen Qingzong. These made Yang Kai's eyes bright, because these things are the treasures left by Wenqing sect for tens of thousands of years, and they will be used by all the disciples in the future. In the deeper part of the grotto, there are a large number of secret treasures. These secret treasures are at least Daoyuan level, and there are even hundreds of shining emperor treasures. With so many secret treasures placed in one place, the energy fluctuations escaping from the secret treasures are truly terrifying. To be continued. Chapter 2658 Search 1 Empty. Chapter 2658, Looted. After investigating all the way, it turned out that Yang Kai, who was considered a very knowledgeable person, was stunned by Wen Qingzong's rich reserves. And such a large amount of wealth belongs to him from today, which is really a windfall. There are more over there. Ji Yao suddenly pointed. Everyone looked in the direction she indicated, and saw that in the deepest part of the grotto, there were 3 stone platforms. On each stone platform, there was a forbidden light curtain, and a box was placed on each. Being so carefully preserved, it can be seen that the things on these 3 stone platforms are absolutely extraordinary. Yang Kai walked over enthusiastically, took out the token that had previously opened the storeroom, and casually shook it on one of the stone platforms. The mysterious light flashed, and the forbidden light curtain opened in response. A long box placed on the stone platform was directly picked up by Yang Kai. Look at what kind of treasure it is. The 3 demon kings came together and looked at it with relish. Everyone has curiosity, and the demon kings are no exception. Yang Kai weighed the long box in his hand with a strange expression, and said, "It seems to be empty." No way. Ying Fei looked stunned, Xie Wuwei and Shi Lei also looked unwilling to believe it, but they also knew that Yang Kai didn't need to lie in front of them. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Yang Kai opened the long box in his hand. As expected, there was nothing inside. Why is an empty box placed here so majestically? Ying Fei said angrily, somewhat disappointed. Yang Kai glanced at the length of the empty box, and suddenly his heart moved. He took out something from the space ring, and then placed it in the box, which happened to fit perfectly. This is the Emperor treasure that Feng Zan used before. Xie Wuwei raised his brows and recognized the Emperor treasure Yang Kai took out. Yang Kai nodded and said, the Wind and Thunder Spear is said to be a relic of Emperor Wenqing. So that's how it is. In other words, this spear of wind and thunder was originally enshrined here, and Feng Zan would only take it out when he needs to use it. Xie Wuwei looked stunned. It should be. After all, it is the legacy of the ancestors. Even if Feng Zan is the sect master of Wenqing sect, he can't always carry this emperor treasure with him. Yang Kai nodded and put the box away. Right now, it can be confirmed that what was originally placed in this empty box is the godly wind and thunder spear. As for the remaining 2 items, since they are also solemnly placed here, their value will definitely not be much lower than that of the godly wind and thunder spear. Yang Kai was also very curious about what was in the remaining 2 boxes, and without hesitation, he directly opened the restrictions on the 2 stone platforms, picked up a box and opened it to have a look. Ying Fei moved quickly, and picked up another box to watch. Hey, Yang Kai raised his brows, his eyes brightened and said, "This is..." As soon as the box in his hand was opened, there was an extremely pure spiritual energy rippling out, which actually made the Emperor Yuan in his body resonate with it, as if this pure spiritual energy was of great benefit to cultivation. Original crystal, Xie Wuwei said, but soon his face changed slightly. No, it's the best source crystal. Extreme source crystal. Shi Lei also stared at the box in Yang Kai's hand, and even Ji Yao, who had been quiet in ancient times, couldn't help but take a look. Sure enough, it's the best source crystal. Yang Kai grinned, reached out and took out a piece about the size of a thumb from the box. The whole body was crystal clear like a crystal. This source crystal is 1 size smaller than the top-grade source crystal, but the heaven and earth aura stored in it is not comparable to the top-grade source crystal. Looking at the entire star world, once a warrior has cultivated to the level of Emperor Senior Realm, low-grade source crystals and even middle-grade source crystals will be of little use. Generally, warriors in Emperor Senior Realm practice with the help of high-grade source crystals and some valuables. The transaction is also the medium of the above-mentioned product source crystal. But above the top-grade source crystal, there is a better existence called the top-grade source crystal. Compared with high-grade source crystals, top-grade source crystals are so rare that they are extremely difficult to find. It is not always possible to find 1 or 2 out of hundreds of source crystal veins, and any top-quality source crystal is formed by the fortune of heaven and earth. According to rumors, the ultimate source crystal has many uses, but the most useful thing for warriors is to break through the shackles. If any warrior encounters a bottleneck in cultivation, the ultimate source crystal is the best auxiliary external force, and it will not. There are hidden dangers like taking some special elixir. In the star world, countless emperors have practiced for thousands of years, stuck in their own bottlenecks, unable to make progress. Throughout the ages, I don't know how many warriors have been looking for this legendary top-quality source crystal, hoping to make further progress. But how can it be so easy to find the best source crystal? Those warriors who painstakingly pursue it are doomed to waste their time. Now, there is actually a box of top-quality source crystals in the warehouse of the Wenqing sect, and there are quite a few of them, as many as 7, neatly placed in the box. Good thing, it's just a pity. Zilei shook his head while admiring. When the other 2 demon kings heard the words, their hearts were also moved, and they nodded and said, "It's really a pity." Although the ultimate source crystal is very useful for warriors to break through, the 3 of them are already powerful existences at the level of demon kings. In other words, they are comparable to the 3rd-level emperor. So although this top-grade source crystal is good, it is like a chicken rib to them. If they want to succeed, they can only pin their hopes on the source of the Holy Spirit, the blood of their distant ancestors. If it wasn't for this reason, with their 3 strengths, how could they be willing to be driven by Yang Kai? Yang Kai also understood what they were pitying, so he didn't point it out. He put the box away, looked at Ying Fei and said, "What is your box?" Ying Fei said with a gloomy face, "1 exercise." As he spoke, he handed the box to Yang Kai. Yang Kai took it, swept his eyes, his complexion suddenly became dignified, and whispered, "Qingqing is the best." This is the foundation of the Wenqing sect, and it is also the extraordinary skill created by the Emperor Wenqing. To practice this kind of skill, the deeper the emotion, the faster the cultivation speed. But for those cultivators whose love seeds were planted, it was a disaster. Because once under the influence of the supreme art of asking love, the person who has been planted with the love seed will be unable to extricate himself forever. Not only will he not be able to improve his cultivation from now on, but he will even obey the words of the practitioner. Back then, Feng Shi fell in love with Ziyu in Bingxin Valley. Although he really liked Ziyu, his main purpose was to use Ziyu to fall in love. If you become Fengshi's forbidden scorpion, you will never touch the mystery of Emperor Senior realm in your life. This is the supreme skill of asking love, both good and evil, although it is an extraordinary skill, but Yang Kai scoffed at it. He always felt that this technique was a bit too dependent on external forces, and it was impossible for people to spy on the Tao, and he didn't know how the Emperor Wenqing could aspire to the supreme position back then. Putting away the cultivation method casually, Yang Kai turned around and said, "Let's see if there is anything you need, just take it." The 3 demon kings looked at me and I looked at you, they all laughed, clasped their hands together and said, "Then I won't be polite." After entering Dabao Mountain, there is naturally no reason to return empty-handed. There are many treasures here, even the 3 demon kings are quite moved after seeing them. The 3 of them dispersed immediately, obviously they already had a goal. Yang Kai looked at Ji Yao again and said, "You should look for it too." Ji Yao shook her head and said, "No need, this time Bingxin Valley was able to save the siege, it's all thanks to you, how can I take your things again?" "It's up to you." Yang Kai knew that with her temper, since she said she wouldn't take it, it would be useless to persuade her, so she simply didn't waste her saliva, wandering around in the warehouse, while waving her big hand, taking the tens of thousands of years of asking love sect. The accumulation is all collected into the mysterious Shaoji. After a short while, the storage in the treasury was reduced by more than half. At this time, the 3 major demon kings also returned one after another. Yang Kai glanced at them, and saw that they didn't have much, each of them took some jade bottles containing pills, and each of them just took an emperor treasure. No one from the monster race can make alchemy, so although the wild ancient land is rich in spiritual herbs and wonderful medicines, the monster race in the ancient land cannot use them perfectly. Basically, the monster race swallows them directly, which greatly wastes the efficacy of the medicinal materials. Now that there are so many elixirs here, the 3 demon kings naturally want to take some, anyway, they are well prepared. As for the Dabao, each of them naturally had one piece in their hands, holding it, each of them smiling from ear to ear. "Is this enough?" Yang Kai asked with a smile, "There are a lot of good things here." "Enough is enough." Ying Fei nodded repeatedly, "Although there are many good things, there are not many that are useful to us. Taking these is enough." Xie Wuwei and Zilei also nodded in agreement. Yang Kai didn't say anything more, just continued to collect things. After burning a stick of incense, the huge underground grotto became empty, and Yang Kai moved countless wealth into mysterious Shaoji. With these things as a foundation, once Yang Kai really wants to establish a sect in the future, resources will definitely not be a problem. I suddenly thought of something. Ji Yao frowned slightly, then Yao Zhou's promotion to the 3rd level of Emperor Senior may be due to the best source crystal. Yang Kai nodded and said, "It makes sense." Yao Zhou was at the 2nd level of Emperor Senior before, so it was unreasonable for him to be promoted suddenly by such a coincidence. If he had to find a reason, then the top-grade source crystal was the most suspicious. Ji Yao smiled again, and said, "It's pointless to explore these things now, since everyone is dead anyway. Let's go." Yang Kai greeted, and took the lead to return along the original road. Out of the warehouse, the cliff closed again, Yang Kai took out the token and opened the restriction again. Turning his head and looking around, Yang Kai said, "I want to set up a space magic circle here, you can do it yourself." The 3 demon kings nodded slightly when they heard the words, and scattered in all directions. Ji Yao said, "Are you going to connect Bingxin Valley with Wenqingzong?" Yang Kai nodded and said, "Well, if they are connected, it will be convenient to come and go in the future. Since he has plans to take root here, he will naturally have to walk around with Bingxin Valley. Now there is a space magic circle arranged by him in Bingxin Valley. If he arranges another one here, it can be directly connected." In the past, Yang Kai lived without a fixed place, so he didn't think much about it, but now that he has some plans, this arrangement is indispensable. To be continued. This text is provided by the Breaking Dawn update group at C0A and not AA. Chapter 2659 Send Charcoal in the Snow. Half a day later, a space law circle took shape. Yang Kai greeted Ji Yao and said, "Junior Sister Yao, please go back to Bingxin Valley and tell the South Gate Army to let him repair Bingxin Valley's protecting sect Grand Formation and come here." While speaking, he handed Ji Yao a special token. Ji Yao took it and asked suspiciously, "What is the use of this token?" She could tell at a glance that this token should be newly refined, and it was made by Yang Kai, because there was still his remaining breath on it. Yang Kai smiled and said, as long as the space magic circle I set up, without this token or if I open it myself, others cannot use it. This is also the reason why Dianfeng failed to activate the space magic circle in Fengluo Palace that day, because she didn't have Yang Kai's restraint token in her hand, which caused her to mistakenly think that the magic circle was incomplete, and wanted to see it as a joke. The result disappointed her. When Ji Yao heard this, her eyes flickered, and she didn't say much. She walked directly to the space magic circle. Yang Kai said while inlaying the source crystal, "There is no rush for this matter, everything will wait for him to repair the big formation of Bingxin Valley." "I see." Ji Yao nodded slightly, and the next moment her body was covered by white light and disappeared. After Ji Yao left, Yang Kai looked left and right, and disappeared in place. Since there is a plan to take root here, Yang Kai of course wants to investigate this foundation that belongs to the Wenqing sect. Although he has been away for a long time, he has been looking for the hidden treasure house, but he has not found it. How to investigate carefully? Now that he is free, Yang Kai will of course inspect this piece of land as the master. The mentality has changed, and everything I see is very different. If it was said that this piece of foundation was very good during the investigation before, then there are only two words to describe Yang Kai's mood now, and that is satisfaction. In Wenqing sect, the heaven and earth are full of aura, the scenery is beautiful, the strange peaks stand tall, there are many rare and exotic beasts running in the mountains and fields, and there are spiritual springs and spiritual eyes everywhere. They are all holy places for cultivation that warriors yearn for. Such a large piece of foundation is enough to accommodate 100,000 disciples without being crowded, and his relatives and friends on Gloomstar do not have this number. After wandering around for several days, Yang Kai finally inspected this piece of land carefully, not letting go of every corner, and he had some calculations in his heart. He returned to the mountain gate where he entered Wenqingzong. Previously, there was a plaque standing here, with the three big characters of Wenqingzong in the letter, which had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, but it was directly smashed by Yang Kai. Returning here, Yang Kai naturally had a plan, but when he swept his spiritual mind, he found that there were many people around him. The strength of these people varies, some sneakily hide in the dark, and some stand majestically not far away. They all wait and see towards Wenqingzong, whispering to each other from time to time. There are quite a few of them, there are thousands of them, there are so many, and more people are approaching here. After the battle between Wenqingzong and Bingxin Valley, Wenqingzong's entire army was wiped out, and the helpers recruited were also killed and injured. This news caused an uproar, and it didn't take long for it to spread throughout the northern territory. These people suddenly appeared outside the mountain gate of Wenqing sect, simply because they heard the news and wanted to come over to see if they could have a good time. When the love sect was at its peak, they had nothing but to look up to. How dare they approach this place? But today is different from the past. Wenqing sect is doomed to perish. How much wealth does the top sect that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years actually store? Since ancient times, wealth has touched people's hearts. Naturally, many people couldn't sit still when they thought of the huge wealth hidden in Wenqing sect. For a behemoth like Wenqingzong, if it leaks a little oil and water, it is enough for them to enjoy it endlessly. But I don't know what's going on inside the Wenqing sect. No one dares to be this early bird, so naturally they can only stand outside the mountain gate and watch. This group of people came here one after another in the past few days, from various sects and clans. After hesitating for a few days, everyone finally thought of recommending a few leaders to advise and plan this matter together, but before they could come up with an idea, they suddenly saw Yang Kai walking out from the Emotion sect. For a time, thousands of pairs of eyes were fixed on Yang Kai, and the discussion stopped abruptly. The next moment, the crowd was in an uproar. Someone came out of it. Shouldn't it be a strong man from Wenqing sect? Wenqingzong's reputation in the northern territory is too great, and now suddenly seeing a person appearing from it, many people subconsciously think that this is the remnant of Wenqingzong, and they are unavoidably frightened, fearing that they will be angered. Fart. Ask the Qing sect below the suzerain, and the high-level people are exhausted. Even if someone escapes, how can they return to the sect? Isn't this a self-inflicted trap? Not bad, not bad. I didn't see that the Wannian signboard of Wenqingzong was smashed by someone. How can anyone who asks Qingzong dare to stay here? In my opinion, this person must also be here to fight the autumn wind, but he arrived here one step ahead of us, and he will definitely gain something. Damn it, how can this person dare to intrude on the foundation of the Qing sect? It's really hateful. As soon as this remark came out, Many people suddenly became restless, and looked at Yang Kai with envy and hatred, as if this wenching sect was their territory, and Yang Kai dared to enter and leave this place to be disrespectful to them. These people stayed outside for several days, and they never had the guts to really rush in, but now it seems that someone has already taken this early bird. That being the case, why are they still dawdling here? All of a sudden, those warriors, whether they were on the bright side or hidden in the dark, showed up one after another, and some people who boasted of their strength flew out and greeted Yang Kai. After all, Yang Kai is only one person, and he looks young, so it will inevitably make people look down upon them. There are so many guys who are united in one place to prepare for the autumn wind, so naturally they will not be afraid of anything. All of a sudden, more than a dozen people flew to stand 30 feet in front of Yang Kai, and a middle-aged man in the lead looked down at Yang Kai and said, "Boy, did you just come out of wenching sect?" Yang Kai glanced at him and sneered in his heart. He didn't know what kind of idea they were planning. When he first saw so many people gathered outside, he was a little surprised, but after thinking about it for a while, he understood their intentions. It is undeniable that their thinking is correct. Since the wenching sect has been destroyed, there must be a lot of good things in the legacy left behind. The walls are overthrown by everyone, and the drums are broken by thousands of hammers. This has been the case since ancient times. It's a pity that Wen Qingzong was defeated by Yang Kai, so how could he give up the many benefits in it? Facing the middle-aged man's question, Yang Kai didn't even bother to pay attention, just rummaged through his space ring. He looked indifferent and arrogant, which immediately made the middle-aged man's face darken. After all, he is also the master of a sect. Although the sect he belongs to is not as huge as Wenqing sect, but looking at the northern territory, it is considered a good force. Now he is being ignored when he asks in person. How can he hold his face? Sensing his anger, a young man next to him immediately stared and said, "Boy, are you deaf? Didn't you hear what my suzerain asked you?" Yang Kai glanced at the young man, and casually said, "This young master is not deaf, it's just that someone asked some nonsense, and this young master didn't bother to pay attention." He had just walked out of the school of asking love, but the middle-aged man still asked such a question, and he didn't know what he was thinking. The young man looked angry and was about to yell at him, but the middle-aged man waved his hand to stop his yelling, looked Yang Kai up and down with a pair of eyes, and said with a slight smile, "My Feiyuan Pavilion Master Li Qingyuan, I don't know how to call the little brother." As soon as he changed his previous arrogant posture, he suddenly became friendly, which made the young man beside him frown slightly, wondering what the suzerain meant. Yang Kai waved his hand and said, "We meet by chance, so don't ask." Li Qingyuan frowned, with some displeasure on his face, thinking that he, as a second-tier emperor and the master of the Feiyuan Pavilion, took the initiative to lower his posture to ask the name of a junior, but he received such an answer. It's really hard to hang on. However, he still has some self-cultivation. Although he is unhappy in his heart, he is calm on the surface, and said, "This is such a little brother. I and many heroes from the northern territory came here. Seeing the dilapidated gate of Wenwen Qingzong, I am quite sad. I want to go inside to inquire, but I am afraid that a rash visit will lead to misunderstanding. Since the little brother came out from the inside, he must know a lot about the situation of Wen Qingzong. I wonder if you can explain to me a little bit." You people's eyes lit up when they heard this, and they all nodded in agreement, asking Yang Kai to explain the situation in Qingqing sect carefully. Yang Kai sneered and said, "Just you guys, dare to be called heroes of the northern territory." He glanced casually, then nodded slightly and said, "Let's count more than a dozen emperors at the first or second level." He spoke so brazenly that immediately made many emperor seniors gathered around Li Qingyuan feel unhappy. They are emperor senior realm, not cats or dogs, each of them enjoys a high reputation in the northern territory, but when it comes to Yang Kai's mouth, it's just a matter of time. This kid is really too arrogant. Yang Kai closed his smile, glanced at the people in front of him, and said, "Are you here to pick up cheap? I just don't know if there are any strong people in the Wenqing sect, so I dare not go in, right?" Li Qingyuan and others couldn't help but blush when they heard this. Although this is true, it is somewhat embarrassing to be exposed in person. Li Qingyuan said far-fetchedly, "Little brother, what you said is wrong. We are all the clan forces of the sect that has some connection with the Wenqing sect. I heard that the Wenqing sect suffered such a catastrophe. I mainly wanted to ask if there is anything that needs to be done. Are you here to pick up something cheap? Little brother, don't think too badly of people, eh?" Yes and that's right, we are all here to give charcoal in the face of need. You boy, don't judge others by yourself, and think so badly of others. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2660 Lingxiao Palace. Chapter 2660, Soaring Heaven Palace. Yang Kai said in surprise, "You are so grandiose to send charcoal to Wenqing sect, are you not afraid that Bingxinghu will trouble you?" The conflict between Wenqing sect and Bingxin Valley has long been spread throughout the northern territory. Now that Wenqingzong is in trouble, they actually come here under the guise of sending charcoal in the snow. If the news spreads, how can Bingxinghu indulge them? Li Qingyuan smiled and said, "Bingxinghu won't. Master Bingyan is kind-hearted. Since we didn't directly oppose Bingxinghu, then she naturally doesn't need to take her anger on us." Exactly. Although the women in Bingxin Valley are arrogant and cold, they are all reasonable people. How can they care about these things? So that's the case. Yang Kai showed a clear expression and nodded slightly. As the saying goes, a gentleman can be deceived by others. Although this saying is not suitable for Bingxinghu, it is almost the same. From another standpoint, if Bingxin Valley suffers a catastrophe and they come here under the guise of sending charcoal in the snow, Wenqingzong will definitely not let them go. It is precisely because they understand Bingxinghu's principles of doing things that they have nothing to fear. Little brother, you haven't talked about what's going on in Qingqing sect. Li Qingyuan saw that the topic had been dragged away, so he quickly brought it back. Yang Kai said indifferently, "Ask the Qing sect's high-ranking army to be annihilated, and the disciples under the sect were killed and injured. What else can happen? It is nothing more than the tree falling and the monkeys scattered." Li Qingyuan's eyes lit up when he heard it, and he said in surprise, "So, is there no one in Wenqing sect now?" Yang Kai looked at him teasingly, and said, "This lord looks very happy. Didn't you come here to ask for help and give charcoal in a timely manner?" When Li Qingyuan heard the words, he immediately showed a sad look, and said, "There is nothing to be happy about. I am very heartbroken now. The top sect of Wenqing sect, but now it has suffered a disaster of extermination, and the inheritance of tens of thousands of years of foundation has been cut off. It is really me a big loss for the northern territory. What a pity, what a pity, what a pity. How could such a powerful force be wiped out all of a sudden?" The rest of the people also became emotional one after another, with sad faces, and people who didn't know the truth saw it, and really thought that they had an excellent relationship with Wenqingzong. As soon as the subject changed, Li Qingyuan said with burning eyes, "Since you came out of the inquiring emotion sect, have you ever found anything in it?" At this time, he is not in a hurry to rush in to fight the autumn wind, because since Yang Kai entered the Qingqing sect before them, if there is any benefit, he will definitely be taken by Yang Kai. It is safest to stare at Yang Kai at this moment. "Found a treasure house," Yang Kai said in shock. As soon as he said that, countless pairs of eyes full of greed and covetousness were fixed on Yang Kai, like sharp swords. "What is there in the treasure house?" Li Qingyuan's voice trembled uncontrollably. Yang Kai chuckled, and said, "Origin crystals, hundreds of millions of source crystals, low grade, mid grade, top grade, everything you expect. All kinds of panaceas, secret treasures, emperor treasures, and classics of exercises. There are only things you can't think of, there is nothing you can't see." Quote. Hissa. There was a sound of gasping, and everyone cheered up, and the greedy light in those eyes was shining brightly. Yang Kai looked at the crowd with a smile, and said, "Everyone looks very excited." Li Qingyuan resisted the urge to swallow, thinking about how to take down the ignorant kid in front of him, and then eat a solo meal. If he really got the tens of thousands of years of Wenqingzong's accumulation, then the strength of Feiyuan Pavilion will definitely be greatly improved. In time, it is not a dream to become the second Wenqingzong. There are many people who think the same as him, and for a moment, everyone feels that there are enemies around them, and when their eyes meet, they feel vigilant. Boy is full of nonsense. A voice suddenly sounded, "It is true that Wenqingzong has a treasure house, but how can you open it with your strength? You are so young and have ulterior motives. Sowing discord here is really a shame. Don't fall for his tricks, everyone." Everyone was slightly surprised when they heard this, and felt that what this man said made sense. There is indeed a treasure house in such a big sect as the Qingqing sect, but how can such an existence be opened casually? I'm afraid that the opening method is only in the hands of people like Feng Zan and Yao Zhou. Li Qingyuan came back to his senses, and immediately said dissatisfied, "Little brother is a bit unkind." Yang Kai smiled disdainfully, "Believe it or not." While speaking, he suddenly took out a strange stone about 3 feet high from the space ring. As soon as the strange stone came out, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped, and an extremely cold breath permeated the surroundings instantly. Even the dozen or so Emperor Senior realms were shrouded in this breath, and suddenly felt that the power in their bodies was not working well. This is a 10,000 years of cold hard iron. What? It's a 10,000-year cold iron. There is such a treasure in this world, and it's such a big piece. My God, where did this thing come from? I heard that a piece of 10,000-year-old cold iron can be refined into an emperor treasure. How many emperor treasures can be refined from this 3-foot-high thing? If this is sold, at least it will be a high-grade source crystal worth over 100 million yuan. This kid didn't lie, he definitely opened up the treasure house of Wenqingzong, which belongs to Wenqingzong. ... Noisy discussion sounded out one after another, and everyone stared at the 3-foot-tall Wanyan Hengsentai with wide-eyed eyes, completely shocked. Just this one thing alone is priceless. If Yang Kai really opened the treasure house of Wenqing sect, how many good things should he get? The previous doubts disappeared all of a sudden. Everyone felt that Yang Kai had picked up a big deal in the Wenqing sect, and many Emperor Senior stages were ready to move, staring at the Wanyan Hengsentai, as if they were going to rush over to snatch it in the next moment. However, due to the fact that there were too many opponents, none of them dared to act at will, and the situation became stalemate for a while. But more people are curious, wondering what Yang Kai would do when he suddenly took out such a peerless treasure. Show off your wealth. It's not necessary. Doesn't he know that he will cause trouble for himself? Just when everyone was suspicious, Yang Kai shook his hand, and a million sword appeared in his hand. He urged Emperor Yuan to pour into the sword body, and the law of space lingered around him, and he carved it stroke by stroke on the 10,000-year cold hard iron. What is this kid doing? It seems to be lettering. What a waste. How can you engrave characters on such a treasure? It's such a waste. Gods and men are outraged. Chi. No matter how angry and spurned those people are, Yang Kai still outlines it stroke by stroke, with a focused and meticulous demeanor. After burning a stick of incense, Yang Kai suddenly took a deep breath, retracted the million sword, his face turned pale. It seemed that this action had exhausted him a lot. After all, it is the top refining material, so even engraving a few words is not so easy. However, after Yang Kai looked at it carefully, he was quite satisfied with his masterpiece. At this moment, a strong wind blew past, and some debris on the Wanyan Hengsen iron was blown away, revealing 3 dragon-flying characters. The fonts are not very beautiful, but it gives people a strange feeling, as if looking at it more you will be immersed in it and can't extricate yourself, and the desire can devour people's mind. Sky Palace. Someone read out the 3 big characters engraved on the Wanyan Hengsen iron, which made the rest of the people look puzzled. What is this Lingxiao Palace? It sounds like the name of a sect, but is there such a sect in the Northern Territory? Never heard of it. At this time, Li Qingyuan showed a thoughtful look on his face, looking at Yang Kai and saying, "Little brother, I don't know what you mean by this." Yang Kai reached out and patted Wanyan Hengsen tea beside him, and said with a smile, "It's nothing, I just want to tell everyone that from now on, this piece of land will be the foundation of my high heaven palace, and a lot of guests just happen to come. It will save me to notify one by one, and I hope that after you go back today, you will do more publicity for Ben Shao. Otherwise, if someone intrudes into my territory of Lingxiao Palace, don't blame Ben Shao for being cruel and merciless." What does this kid mean? Could it be that he wants to start a sect? What a joke. How can he just start a sect here with a mere brat? That's right, this is the property left by the Wenqing sect. Even if you want to occupy it, it's not his turn. The boy's heart is higher than the sky, but his life is thinner than paper. ... A sound of discussion came to Yang Kai's ears. Yang Kai was as steady as a mountain, and he sneered after the noise, "Do you have any opinions? If you have any opinions, hold back, lest everyone will be unhappy if you say it. The boy is too crazy. Do you really think that there is no one in the Northern Territory?" Li Qingyuan also said with a gloomy face, "Boy, you are a little too much. Since we are here today, you are not the only one who has the final say on the matter here. The Wenqing sect is my Northern Territory sect. The ownership of the inherited foundation and treasury should be discussed and decided by many heroes in the Northern Territory, but it is not up to you." In one sentence, the legacy of Wenqingzong was elevated to the height of the Northern Territory. Li Qingyuan deserved to be an old fox, and everyone applauded. Yang Kai smiled and said, In this young master's territory, naturally everything has to be obeyed by me, and those who are not convinced can stand up. Sect Master Li, this kid is too arrogant, I have to teach him a lesson today. That's right, I'm enough to give him face, but he's so aggressive, there's no need to talk nonsense with him. Let's do it, now that Wenqingzong has been empty, there is nothing to worry about. They didn't dare to break in before, but they were afraid that there would be some strong people in Wenqing sect staying in the sect. Now that it is confirmed that there is no one in Wenqing sect, and Yang Kai got the treasure house and wanted to occupy this large foundation, naturally he didn't, people can't bear it. A gleam of determination flashed in Li Qingyuan's eyes, he nodded slightly and said, forget it, since he is obsessed with obsession, then teach him a lesson. When the words fell, he had already rushed out first. The rest of the people were naturally unwilling to lag behind, and rushed towards Yang Kai one after another, thinking that they could grab Yang Kai's space ring. Yang Kai casually took out a piece of 10,000-year-old cold iron that was 3 feet high, who knows how many good things there are in his ring. All of a sudden, more than a dozen Emperor Senior Realm menacingly rushed towards them, and the scene was extremely lively. To be continued. To be continued. This text is provided by the Breaking Dawn update group at C.A and not A. Chapter 2661. Is there any reason? When the Emperor Yuan was surging and the crowds were gathering, a great war was imminent. In the face of more than a dozen Emperor Senior Realm teaming up to attack and kill, Yang Kai not only did not dodge, but laughed out loud, causing everyone to look sideways, wondering which nerve of this kid got the wrong line. But at this moment, the arrow is on the string, even if everyone realizes that the situation is different, they can't stop, and they all stare at the space ring in Yang Kai's hand. In an instant, more than a dozen people jumped in front of Yang Kai, each using their own methods, attacking fiercely and violently. Condensation. A cold snort sounded, and under the lingering laws of space, within a radius of 100 feet, the space instantly became viscous and solidified. This turn of events shocked the dozen or so people who attacked, and the Yuan in their bodies suddenly failed to function properly, as if they had fallen into a deep pool of quagmire, which gave people the illusion that they were struggling, and the power of their moves was greatly reduced, and even the brilliance of the sacrificed emperor treasure was dimmed. What? Everyone's face changed wildly, and it was too late when they realized that something was wrong and were about to withdraw. Yang Kai raised his hands, turned into palm shadows all over the sky and blasted forward. There was a burst of explosions, and one after another figures flew out in embarrassment, all of them sprayed blood in midair, their faces pale as paper. Clap clap, more than a dozen Emperor Senior stages fell all over the ground like dumplings. After standing up again, everyone's face was ashen, and their souls were shocked. On the other hand, Yang Kai seemed to be taking a lot of effort to repel so many Emperor Senior stages at once. His figure shook slightly, but there was no sign of retreating, and the blood on his face turned pale for a moment before returning to normal. However, that figure still stands tall and straight in front of the mountain gate, like a needle that fixes the sky, guarding this side of the land. How is this possible? Is he at the first level of Emperor Senior? How is this done? A dozen or so Emperor Senior realms felt an extremely unreal feeling in their hearts, as if they were born in a dream. Although they didn't know Yang Kai's depth before, but seeing Yang Kai's young age, they also knew that his cultivation base was not high, so they didn't take him seriously. Facts have proved that their guess is correct. Yang Kai's practice has exposed his cultivation base. It is indeed at the first level of Emperor Zun, who is only weaker than them. But it happened that it was this first-level emperor, who defeated the joint attack of more than a dozen people at once with his own strength, and injured everyone. If this hadn't happened to me, I'm afraid no one would dare to believe it. This is simply a fantasy. Especially Li Qingyuan, who is at the second level of the emperor. He has been in the Northern Territory for so many years, and has never encountered such a bizarre thing. He has also fought a lot at the first level of the emperor, and he has always crushed others. But who is as fierce as the young man in front of him? The greedy and coveted eyes gradually converged, replaced by infinite solemnity. It is rumored that there are some martial arts geniuses in this world. Although their cultivation base is not high, they can leapfrog combat and even kill people. Li Qingyuan has also seen such people. However, those so-called geniuses are at best a tie with him. Compared with this person in front of him, they are simply mediocre. The person in front of him is not only fighting by leaps and bounds, but even with a pair of more than a dozen people, he will not be defeated at all. Li Qingyuan even suspected that this young man didn't use his full strength. If he really used his full strength, perhaps half of the dozen or so people would die at once. Thinking of this, cold sweat suddenly broke out on Li Qingyuan's forehead. The first level of Emperor Zun is so good, if he is promoted to the second level or even the third level of Emperor Zun, wouldn't he be invincible? At that time, I am afraid that only those strong men who have ascended the throne of the great emperor will be his opponents. Where the hell are you, kid? Someone yelled heart-piercingly, as if he still didn't want to accept his fate of being knocked into the air, and felt that Yang Kai was opportunistic, and he was very unconvinced. This question is also what everyone wants to know. Such an outstanding young man cannot be an unknown rising star. At least everyone should have heard of his name. Turning his head to look at the person who asked the question, Yang Kai grinned and said loudly, "This young master Yang Kai, I think everyone should be familiar with it." Hiss, he is Yang Kai. That Yang Kai who killed Feng Shi in the Sea of Aa Broken Stars and made Feng Zan furious. The war between the Bingxin Valley and Wenqing sect was all because of him. I heard that the annihilation of Wen Qingzong's entire army this time was also due to his plan. I don't know where to get reinforcements to kill Feng Zan, Yao Zhou and others in one fell swoop. It has to be said that Yang Kai is quite well known in the land of the Northern Territory, thanks to Feng Zan's previous publicity. After all, the battle between the two factions is of great importance. Wenqing sect can't learn from Wu Ming, and Yang Kai killed Feng Shi, and Bing Yun shielded Yang Kai as the reason Wen Qingzong started the war against Bingxin Valley. Prior to this, the warriors in the Northern Territory were very curious about who this guy named Yang Kai was, who had the guts to kill Feng Shi, and secretly felt that this kid might not end well. But no one expected that in the end, the Wenqing sect would be wiped out, and the perpetrators would go to the foundation of the Wenqing sect to establish a sect, occupy the Magpie's Nest, and want to create a Lingxiao palace. If the Emperor Wenqing knew about this matter, I am afraid that even if he died, he would still be angry. For a while, there was no sound outside the mountain gate, whether it was the dozen or so Emperor Senior Realm, or the thousands of warriors outside, they all looked at Yang Kai in a daze. Swipe. A few sounds of piercing the air sounded, and then, 3 figures suddenly appeared beside Yang Kai. As soon as the 3 figures appeared, they rolled up a monstrous coercion. The overwhelming coercion seemed to make the whole world dim. At the minute, everyone felt that their breathing was stagnant, as if a mountain had been pressed down on their chests, and their expressions were hard. Pairs of eyes stared at the 3 figures, all of them trembling. Even though they couldn't see the reality of these 3 people clearly, the powerful coercion told everyone present that whoever made a move from these 3 guys would be able to kill everyone here and wipe them out. A gust of cold air surged up from the soles of their feet in an instant, and rushed straight to the top of their heads. Thousands of people looked ashen, as if their parents had died. Young Master Yang, what happened? Why did I feel someone fighting? Xie Wuwei frowned and asked. HMPH, it seems that someone is acting wild here. Ying Fei said, his falcon-like eyes swept towards the dozen or so Emperor Senior stage, with an extremely unkind expression. How brave, who dares to be wild, let the old cow come and meet him. Zile shouted even more loudly, his whole body was rolling, and a gust of evil wind was blowing up, as if he wanted to poke a hole in the sky. Monster Clan. Someone noticed the monster aura and exclaimed immediately. It's the Demon King. Li Qingyuan shouted heart-piercingly, cold sweat dripped down his forehead in big drops, his face was as pale as paper. Although he is a strong second-level emperor, but facing this monster king who is comparable to the third-level emperor, he still has more than enough heart but not enough strength, and he is instinctively frightened. What's more, if he was not mistaken, the other 2 powerhouses should also be from the Demon Clan, and they are also powerful existences at the Demon King level. Oh my god, the existence of the Demon King is rare compared to the 3rd level of Emperor Zun, but today here, he unexpectedly saw 3 of them at once, and he didn't know whether it was luck or sadness. Thinking of what happened before, Li Qingyuan felt that the latter is more likely. And after Li Qingyuan's shout from the Demon King, more than a dozen emperors and thousands of warriors all took a step back and looked at Zile with horror on their faces, as if Zile was some kind of scourge, and it was about to hit the next moment. Choose people and eat them. Who acted wildly here just now? Stand up for me. Shilei rolled his eyes, and his voice was thunderous. Who dares to answer? Fearing that he would stare at him and die inexplicably, there was a sound of swallowing saliva, but his feet seemed to be nailed. The dozen or so Emperor Senior Realm cast their eyes on Li Qingyuan one after another, hoping that he would be an early bird and have a good talk with this Demon King. Li Qingyuan secretly scolded a group of despicable villains with no sense of loyalty, but the consequences of not making a sound may not be much better now, so he can only say dryly, "My Lord Demon King, you misunderstood and misunderstood." Misunderstanding? Shi Lei squinted at Li Qingyuan, and hummed, how could it be a misunderstanding? Li Qingyuan racked his brains, his thoughts were flying, and he answered while considering the words, "That's right, we are all warriors in the Northern Territory. I heard that young Master Yang Kai founded a sect here, so I came here to congratulate you, but I have no eyes. It is offensive to not recognize Mr. Yang. I hope Mr. Yang and all the adults will forgive me." What he said was articulate and clear, and Li Qingyuan admired his own wit. Creating a sect? Shi Lei was stunned, and looked at Yang Kai inquiringly. Although he mentioned this matter a few days ago, Yang Kai didn't give a positive answer. I don't know why Li Qingyuan suddenly brought it up. Ying Fei's sharp eyes saw Wanyan Hengxinti standing next to him, clapped his hands and said, "Young Master Yang has really established a sect here. Soaring Heaven Palace, soaring ambition, so wonderful." Xie Wuwei laughed loudly and said, very good, then Xie will stay in Lingxiao Palace from now on. I hope young Master Yang will give you a deacon or something like that. It's also an old cow." Shi Lei put away the fierce look, but showed a flattering smile, looked at Yang Kai and said, "Young Master Yang can't treat one more than another." Ying Fei nodded and said, "I also have the same intention." More than a dozen emperors senior realm fainted all of a sudden, and the thousands of warriors were even more dumbfounded. Each of them felt extremely unreal, and questioned their own hearing. These are the three great demon kings, comparable to the three powerhouses at the third level of Emperor Zun. Now they have established a door here and engraved the brand of the sect. They have not officially established a sect yet. These three are actually can't wait to join in. And actually only ask to reward a deacon who protects the law. Is this still reasonable? At the third level of Emperor Zun, if you look at the star field, which one is not the overlord, which one is not a grand master, with such strength, it is enough to start a sect by yourself, but now, you have to beg to join Ling Xiao, which has not yet been established palace. What is the virtue and ability of this Yang Kai to make the three demon kings so attached? To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2662y. Chapter 2662y. Li Qingyuan and the others were full of dissatisfaction. The three demon kings joined the Lingxiao palace and only wanted to reward a deacon. Naturally, their strength was not comparable to the three demon kings. If they were in the Lingxiao palace, could they only be compared to ordinary disciples? Of course, it is impossible for them to leave their sect to join the Lingxiao palace. The water in this Lingxiao palace is too deep for them to mix in it. However, with the addition of these three demon kings, Lingxiao Palace may become a first-class sect in the Northern Territory in the future. Once it develops, it will definitely overshadow the glory of Wenqing sect. Li Qingyuan and the others seemed to see the figure of a colossus that was about to rise, and they were shocked in their hearts. Such a good thing happened to Yang Kaido, which also made a group of people go crazy with jealousy. Here, any one of the three demon kings can join their sect, and it will definitely benefit people endlessly. But to everyone's surprise, facing the earnest request of the three demon kings, Yang Kai was rather embarrassed and said, "Let's discuss this matter again." Li Qingyuan and the others stared wide-eyed in an instant, scolding Yang Kai that he simply didn't know what to do, something that others couldn't ask for, but he had to discuss it again when it came to him. This guy couldn't really have a problem with his head, right? This is a fart, it is the right way to agree to it. Shi Lei and the others looked at each other, and they all knew what Yang Kai was worried about. Although with his current position in the center of the three saints, it is nothing to ask three demon kings from the wild ancient land to suppress the situation. It's a big deal, but he obviously doesn't want to poach other people's corners so hastily, especially if he wants to dig the corners of the three great saints. At the very least, he had to say hello to Luanfeng and the others first. After understanding this, Zilei and the other three demon kings did not force him anymore. After pondering for a while, Shi Lei said, "Young Master Yang, these people, are you going to kill them?" He asked casually, as if what he wanted to kill was not thousands of people, but thousands of chickens and ducks, causing everyone to turn pale and look to Yang Kai for help. At this time, they also know that the life and death of themselves and others are all in Yang Kai's mind. Yang Kai wants them to live and they live, and it is difficult for them to die if they don't die. The dozen or so Emperor senior stage leaders looked at Yang Kai with flattering smiles and apprehensions, lest he would say the word kill. Kill what you want, no vengeance. Yang Kai waved his hand and said with a smile, "Didn't you hear that they came to congratulate me for founding a sect? Since they came to congratulate, then they are my guests of Lingxiao Palace." "That's right, Mr. Yang is wise." Li Qingyuan yelled incessantly, with a trace of rejoicing for the rest of his life on his face. He knew that since Yang Kai said these words, the lives of himself and others must be safe, and he was grateful for his magnanimity. Zile nodded and said, "Old Niu is being reckless." The conversation changed, and he yelled at Li Qingyuan and the others, "You bastards, since you are here to congratulate, why don't you see a congratulatory gift? Could it be just talking casually?" Li Qingyuan and others were shocked, and hurriedly said, don't you dare, congratulatory gifts. Naturally, there are some are there." As they spoke, more than a dozen Emperor Senior Realms hurriedly rummaged through their space rings, sometimes with a look of determination and sometimes with a hesitant expression. After a short while, more than a dozen space rings gathered in Li Qingyuan's hands. Li Qingyuan held them in both hands, and came to Yang Kai tremblingly, forced a smile and said, "Mr. Laughing." Yang Kai took it casually without checking the contents of the ring. Now that he is wealthy, he does not lack these dozen space rings. Slightly nodded and said, "Sect Master Li has a heart." There was a hidden pain in Li Qingyuan's face. He just offered most of his years of storage. Just now, he was afraid that Yang Kai would not be satisfied. It is estimated that the other emperors are like this, otherwise they would not show distressed expressions one by one. He never thought that when someone got something, he would put it away without even looking at it. If he had known this, he would have spent so much effort on what to do, just stuff some congratulatory gifts into it. It's easy to say, young Master Yang. If there is no other order, Li will leave. Li Qingyuan lost his wealth, and his heart was so blocked that he just wanted to leave here as soon as possible. "Speaking of instructions, I really need your help with something," Yang Kai said with a pleasant expression. "Ah," Li Qingyuan was shocked, and while wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, he asked anxiously, "I don't know what orders young master has." Yang Kai smiled slightly. "Sect Master Li, don't be so nervous, what I want you to do for me is very simple. Just leave this place and do a little publicity for Ben Shao in the Northern Territory, saying that Ben Shao has occupied this piece of land, built the Lingxiao Palace." Hearing this, Li Qingyuan felt relieved, and said with a long breath, "So that's what happened." Yang Kai looked at him meaningfully and said, "Then what does Sect Master Li think?" Li Qingyuan said embarrassingly, "It's nothing, it's a trivial matter, and it's on Li. Although Li is not strong enough, he also knows some friends, and he will spread the news in the shortest possible time. Generations have come to harass your palace." "That's good." Yang Kai nodded with a smile, and glanced at the other Emperor Senior Stage, said, "I also hope that you can help me a little bit." How could the emperors dare not agree? They all nodded and promised, each of them patted their chests and made a promise. Yang Kai smiled and cupped his fists and said, "Since you are all heroes of the Northern Territory, when I officially open the gate of Lingxiao Palace in another day, I will definitely send invitations, and I hope you will come to have a glass of wedding wine at that time." When everyone heard the words, they felt a pain in their hearts, knowing that there would be another big congratulatory gift at that time, but on the surface they continued to exchange pleasantries with Yang Kai, expressing that the time would definitely come. After a few more words, a group of people can't wait to escape. "A bunch of rubbish, young Master Yang, why bother to give them face?" Shilei snorted coldly, although he didn't see the conflict between Yang Kai and those Emperor Senior Realm, but he also vaguely guessed some truth. According to his personality, directly killed them all, can be regarded as making a name for Lingxiao Palace. Yang Kai shook his head with a smile and said, "Many friends have many ways, they are just motivated by profit, and have no grievances or enmity with me, why bother to kill them all? If Lingxiao Palace wants to gain a foothold in the Northern Territory in the future, it is not suitable for the world to be enemies. You must know that snakes have snake ways, rats have rat ways, and one day in the future they may have something they can rely on." Zile immediately flattered him. "Yang Xiaoying is wise, it's Lao Niu who didn't think carefully." Yang Kai didn't like his flattery. Quan pretended he didn't hear it, raised his hand and said, "You guys come with me." The three demon kings looked at each other. Although they didn't know what Yang Kai was going to do, they all obediently followed. After a short while, everyone came to Yang Kai's newly arranged space law formation. Glancing at the three people, Yang Kai said, "This time, I would like to thank the three demon kings. Without your help, I am afraid that Bingxin Valley would not be so easy to get out of the siege. I thank Senior Bingyan and the thousands of disciples of Bingxin Valley. Everyone. Xile and the others were shocked, and hurriedly said, Young Master Yang is serious, it's just a trivial matter. Yang Kai smiled and said, it's a small matter for you, but it is a life-saving grace for Bingxin Valley, so it can't be confused. After a pause, Yang Kai said, but since the dust has settled here, the three of you should go back to the wild and ancient land first. Ah, Ying Fei immediately showed disappointment when he heard it, and looked at Yang Kai eagerly and said, Young Master Yang, let us go back now, we have only been out for a few days. Yes, yes, Xie Wuwei also nodded fiercely, Young Master Yang, if there is anything else you want to tell me to wait for, just ask, the three of us will definitely agree. Shi Lei was ready to move. Young Master Yang, how about taking us to sweep the Northern Territory and unify the Northern Territory? Ying Fei and Xie Wuwei applauded loudly at this proposal, and the monster energy in their bodies rolled, as if Yang Kai gave an order, and they were going to harm other sects in the Northern Territory. Yang Kai laughed and said, although the three are strong, human monsters are different after all. If you really set off any uproar in the Northern Territory, I am afraid it will cause trouble. I know what you are thinking, but there is no rush, girl, it is still unknown when we will leave the customs, you just wait for the news in the ancient land. When Yang Kai pointed out what was in his heart, the three demon kings all had a bit of embarrassment. After all, it was because of the relationship between Yang Kai and Zhang Ruoxi that they surrendered to him so much. Without Zhang Ruoxi, how could Yang Kai have such weight? The three of them also knew that what Yang Kai said was the truth. Although they wanted to follow Yang Kai and be close to the water, the key point was that the blood gate had been hidden since it disappeared. No one knew when Zhang Ruoxi would leave the customs. Also useless. But when he went back like this, he was quite unwilling. God knows when Yang Kai will think of them next time. Xie Wuwei rolled his eyes and said, Young Master Yang, let the two of them go back. Xie can just follow you, and it will be convenient for you to protect your safety. You have to be careful. Why should we leave and you stay? Ying Fei and Shi Lei asked in unison, with expressions of resentment. This guy wants to eat alone, it's simply hateful. Xie Wuwei snorted, no reason. Xile yelled, come, come, let's fight first, whoever is the most powerful will stay, let's talk with fists, don't rely on words, since you want to protect young Master Yang, of course you have to keep the most powerful. 32 Demon Kings, among the 8 great envoys, he is strong enough to rank in the top 3, fighting alone, Ying Fei and Xie Wuwei are definitely not his opponents. Xie Wuwei sneered and said, I don't care. Ying Fei said, Brother Xie, you are wrong, even if you really want to leave someone behind to protect young Master Yang, it's not about you. In terms of strength, Brother Xile is better than you. If Wang Ruo is number 2, no one dares to be number 1, this king is obliged to take on the important task of bodyguard. The corner of Xie Wuwei's mouth twitched, and he snorted coldly, how about Xie being young Master Yang's sole slave? While speaking, suddenly a faint golden light emerged from his mind with the power of the soul. That golden light was obviously a layer of soul restriction, which was branded in Xie Wuwei's sea of AA consciousness, and from the soul restriction, it was obvious that it belonged to Yang Open Breath. To be continued. To be continued. This text is provided by the Breaking Dawn update group at C.A and not AA. Chapter 2663 doesn't work. Ying Fei and Xile opened their mouths wide and stared stupidly. In this situation, they still don't know what's going on. This Xie Wuwei is really Yang Kai's soul slave, and he was branded by the soul. It's just, when exactly did this happen? During this period of time, the 3 demon kings have been together, but there is no clue. Xie Wuwei took the golden light away, and said with a light smile, as early as when Yang Xiao entered the ancient land last time, Xie had surrendered to him, Xia's life and death were all in Yang Xiao's mind, if something went wrong with Yang Xiao, Xie must be dead, so Xie is loyal to young Master Yang, how can you two be comparable? As a demon king of a generation, now he has become someone's sole slave, but Xie Wuwei is not ashamed but proud. If other people who don't know the truth see it, their eyes will explode. But this matter fell into the eyes of Ying Fei and Xile, and they could only curse secretly in their hearts, it was extremely hateful. Xie Wuwei has such a relationship with Yang Kai, if it is really necessary to leave someone to protect his safety, then there is no suspense about who this person is. For a moment, both Xile and Ying Fei were full of unwillingness, and looked at Yang Kai eagerly. Yang Kai showed a wry smile, Last time in the Tomb of All Souls in the ancient land, he had no choice but to accept Xie Wuwei as a soul slave, and only wanted to use his strength. At that time Xie Wuwei was still the boss who was unwilling, and later came out of Wanlingji tomb was even more distant from Yang Kai, as if he was afraid that others would underestimate him if they knew about him and Yang Kai. But now, he actually took the initiative to reveal such information, just to get a chance. I have to say that this change of mentality is quite funny. But Yang Kai can't say that he is eager for quick success. After all, the cultivation base of these demon kings has reached the limit, and the only hope in this life is the secret of the blood gate. Now that the opportunity is in front of you, who doesn't want to fight for it? Just when Xie Wuwei was complacent, Yang Kai waved his hand suddenly, and a ray of golden light flew directly from Xie Wuwei's forehead and returned to Yang Kai's body. Xie Wuwei was stunned for a moment with a proud expression, and he felt that the shackles had been lifted for no reason, but what followed was not joy, but a mournful expression. Young Master Yang, you are. The divine soul brand was taken back, which meant that Yang Kai's connection with his divine soul was cut off, and he was no longer Yang Kai's soul slave, and he recovered his freedom from then on. Xie Wuwei never thought that Yang Kai would come to this attack, and so decisively. How could an ordinary person be willing to let go of such a powerful soul slave? I'm afraid I want to take it with me and wait for dispatch, but when I arrive at Yang Kai's place, I just give it up casually. How can this kind of generosity and mentality be compared to ordinary people? Ha 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 ha. Yingfei and Zile laughed out loud, extremely happy. Their eyes were bright, they didn't know what happened, they screamed happily in their hearts, and told you to thank Wu Wei for showing off. Of course, the present report came quickly, and it deserves it. Young Master Yang, you can't do this. Xie Wuwei was wronged, and looked at Yang Kai with resentment, making Yang Kai seem to abandon him. Yang Kai waved impatiently. Let's go, let's go. I really want to go. Xile grimaced, a little reluctant. Yang Kai Dao, don't blame me for driving you away after I have used you, but you are the ancient demon king after all, and there are 3 holy venerables on top, abducting you without saying hello. I can't do anything to a few holy venerables explain. How about it, anyway? It is very convenient for me to go in and out of the ancient land now. If there is any good thing next time, I will call you over at any time. Hearing what Yang Kai said, the 3 demon kings looked much better, and they all nodded and said, Yang Xiao must keep his word, and then only call us 3, don't call other guys. The 32 demon kings and the 8 great envoys in the ancient land are all first-class powerhouses, and the pressure of competition is a little bit high. They also didn't want the relationship between other demon kings and holy envoys to have a good relationship with Yang Kai, so they just kept lingering and didn't want to leave. Got it, Yang Kai agreed, and kept waving his hands to urge him, as if chasing away flies. Only then did the 3 demon kings slowly walk onto the space circle. Yang Kai inlaid the source crystal beside him casually, and after a while, he glanced at the 3 of them and said, Are you ready? Several people nodded, clasped their fists together and said, Young Master Yang, take care. Those words were full of reluctance, as if they wanted to part with Yang Kai. Yang Kai responded, and shouted in a low voice, Go. When the words fell, he urged Emperor Yuan to pour into the space magic circle. Bizarrely, there was no movement in the space magic circle. Yang Kai and the 3 demon kings stared at each other for a while, all with strange expressions on their faces. Yang Kai was stunned, scratched his head, and tried again, but still failed to activate the space magic circle. The 3 demon kings looked at each other, and their thoughts became active again. Yingfei smiled and said, It seems that God won't let me wait to leave. Xie Wuwei immediately echoed, Yes, yes, young Master Yang, since God has this intention, don't force yourself. What's going on? Yang Kai was confused, and observed around the space law formation. Although this thing was just arranged by him, there should be nothing wrong. After some inspection, it was confirmed that the space law circle was intact. Zile reminded from the side, Young Master Yang, last time we teleported directly from the ancient land to Bingxin Valley, is it possible that this space magic circle cannot connect to the ancient land? Impossible. Yang Kai shook his head. The space magic circle he arranged can be connected to each other. In other words, the magic circle in Lingxiao Palace can not only connect to Bingxin Valley, but also connect to the wild ancient land is right. Just when Yang Kai was puzzled, a ray of light burst out above the space magic circle, and then, 2 figures suddenly appeared from the magic circle. Several people fixed their eyes, and it turned out that Ji Yao and the South Gate army came together. The two of them seemed to be dizzy for a short time after the teleportation, but Ji Yao immediately came back to his senses, but the South Gate army was a little bit late. After all, his cultivation base was weaker than Ji Yao's. Senior brother Yang, someone brought it here for you. Ji Yao glanced at Yang Kai and said softly. Yang Kai nodded and looked towards the South Gate army, who also happened to be looking at him. His eyes lit up when he saw Yang Kai, and he said excitedly, Master Yang, I heard that you have something to do with me. Ever since he saw the space array arranged by Yang Kai has risen to the level of a generation of array master in his heart, and he is even more powerful than him. There's something wrong. Yang Kai nodded, suspiciously said, but didn't you tell me to repair the Bingxin Valley's protector array before coming here? Why did you come so soon? Nanman Daijin said, it has been repaired over there. I heard that Master Yang summoned me to rush to work day and night. I finally finished my work just now, so I rushed here without stopping. When speaking, a flattering expression. You didn't deal with it casually, did you? Yang Kai looked at him incredulously. Bingxin Valley Protector Array, such a huge project, how could it be completely repaired in a few days? The Nanman army panicked and said, how dare you, Master Yang is also very knowledgeable in the way of formation, how can I use an axe in front of you? And it can be repaired so quickly, mainly because I have dealt with the guardian of Bingxin Valley in the past few months. The array has been studied carefully, and the method of breaking the array this time is also provided below. If you do the opposite, it will naturally be repaired soon. So that's it. Yang Kai didn't doubt that he was there, but he still said seriously, I will go to Bingxin Valley to check later. If you dare to pass it off as a good one, be careful with your head. Nanman Daijin said to himself, you can rest assured, Master Yang. After a pause, he said, by the way, Master Yang is in such a hurry to call me over, what can I tell you? Yang Kai waved his hand and said, look here. The Nanman army turned their heads to look, let out a light sigh, and then flew into the air for a while to check, then landed and said, isn't this asking the emotion sect? The last time he came to Wenqingzong, he had been a guest for a while, so he naturally recognized this piece of land, but the last time he came here, the place was full of outstanding people, but now the scenery is there, but the people are nowhere to be seen. The tens of thousands of years of the great emperor's inheritance was wasted here, which made him feel sad. This used to be Wenqing sect, but now it is Lingxiao Palace. Yang Kai smiled slightly. Lingxiao Palace. Nanman Daijin frowned, not knowing what Yang Kai meant. On the contrary, Ji Yao's beautiful eyes flashed, her face was thoughtful, and she had some vague guesses. Yang Kai continued, I want you to reopen the sect protection formation here, and repair it, use all your skills on this piece of land, and arrange for me a formation that is not inferior to any sect in the world. Falai. After hearing this, the army of the South Gate became energetic immediately, as if he had heard some challenge that made him happy. Yang Kai observed the words and expressions, and secretly nodded, extremely satisfied with his reaction. Master Yang meant to occupy this piece of land. The South Gate army reacted extremely quickly, and naturally guessed Yang Kai's intention. Not bad. Yang Kai nodded and admitted, how long will such a huge project take? The army of the South Gate did not answer immediately, but pondered for a moment seriously, and said, the protective formation of the Wenqing sect has not been destroyed, but it has been artificially closed. I need to study the layout of the formation here carefully, and then only then can we come up with a way to improve it. The shortest is 2 months, the latest 3 months, and Master Yang will definitely be satisfied with the result. Okay, I'll give you 3 months. Yang Kai nodded readily. Nanman Daijin said, however, the materials needed to arrange and improve such a large formation. You can make a list of any materials you want, and I can provide them to you. Yang Kai said indifferently. Now that he has plundered so much wealth, he has even emptied the warehouse of Wenqingzong. Naturally, he has the materials needed to arrange a large array of guardians. The army of the South Gate suddenly smiled and said, it's easy to handle if you have the materials. By the way, Master Yang, do you want to join me? Yang Kai said in a deep voice, I'm busy with things, I'm afraid I can't share your worries, you can deal with the big formation if you need any help. He turned his head and looked at Ji Yao. Ji Yao understood, and immediately answered, just look for me, I'll go back to the teacher's gate and call some sisters over. To be continued, closing parenthesis. Chapter 2664 Abandoned. Then, okay, I will have to trouble Elder Ji Yao at that time. The army of the South Gate was a little disappointed. He wanted to take this opportunity to exchange ideas and experiences with Yang Kai on the Tao of formation. Thinking that Yang Kai didn't give him this chance at all made him a little disappointed. However, it is also his long-cherished wish as a generation of formation masters to replan and arrange the perfect protective formation for a large area today. Soon he collected his thoughts, apologized, and ran out to check the layout of the guardian formation that originally belonged to the Wenqing sect. After he left, Yang Kai touched his chin and looked at the space magic circle next to him, saying, "Sure enough, it's not broken. If the layout of the magic circle is wrong, it is impossible for Ji Yao and the Nanman army to teleport over from Bingxin Valley." "What's not broken?" Ji Yao asked curiously. Zile immediately told what happened just now with a smile on his face. He couldn't help but laugh. After hearing this, Ji Yao said thoughtfully, "The two ends of the space magic circle are connected. Since this place and Bingxin Valley are not broken, then maybe there is something wrong with the magic circle on the ancient land." One word awakened the dreamer. Yang Kai's eyes lit up, and he clapped his hands and said, "It must be so." After finishing speaking, he suddenly remembered something, gritted his teeth and said, Mrs. Feng, it's really terrible to take the bottom out of the pot. It is impossible for the space magic circle in the ancient land to be broken for no reason. The only explanation is that it was artificially destroyed by Luanfeng after he left. Luanfeng did this because he was afraid that he would harass him from time to time in the future, and this move was understandable, but it made Yang Kai hate it. Although it doesn't take much to set up a space magic circle, the key is that the ancient land is far away, and it will take some time to travel. In his mind, dealing with the ancient land is indispensable in the future, and leaving a magic circle there is also convenient for travel. Who would have thought that when he left, Luanfeng smashed the magic circle with the back foot? It really is the most poisonous woman's heart, usually looking at Luanfeng as dignified and elegant. Who would have known that she is so cruel and merciless? It seems that if you go to the ancient land next time, you have to go to the territory of the Shilling clan to set up a magic circle, so as not to be destroyed by Luanfeng again. Secretly making up his mind, Yang Kai turned his head to look at Shi Lei and the others, and said, "It seems that you were abandoned by the ancient land." Zile and the others also turned their heads at this moment, understanding the reason why they were not sent away, and they were more happy than disappointed, and they all smiled and said, it's okay, Lord Luanfeng must think that young master has a lot to do with it. If you want me to be responsible for personal protection, since the adults have this intention, then young master Yang can no longer refuse. Yang Kai Dao, it's already like this, can I drive you away again? He was reluctant to keep the three great demon kings before, mainly because he was concerned about the face of the three great saints in the ancient land. After all, these three demon kings belong to the three great saints respectively, so they abducted them like this. It doesn't seem very kind. But now that Luanfeng is in the first year of junior high school, he can only be forced to be in the 15th year. It makes sense, and there is nothing wrong with Goody. Losing a space law formation and winning the three great demon kings, Yang Kai made a lot of money, and he has a clear conscience. Xie Wuwei smiled from ear to ear, rubbed his hands together and said, Young Master Yang, this is the end of the matter, so we can join Lingxiao Palace, right? I don't ask for anything else, Xie only asks for a Dharma protector. Both Yingfei and Zile looked moved. Yang Kai said with a smile, with the abilities of the three of you, the Dharma protectors are a bit overkill. The Lingxiao Palace has only opened a mountain gate now. It will take a few days to reopen the door and recruit disciples, but if there is a day, the three will stay in my Lingxiao Palace as an offering. Zile and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but be overjoyed. With Yang Kai's words, it means that everyone will be their own people in the future. What's the benefit? Yang Kai can still forget them. Compared with other demon kings and holy envoys in the ancient land, they are already ahead. Before a sect was formally established, there were already 3 priests who were comparable to the 3rd-level Emperor Senior. If this news spread, it would not know how many people in the world would be envied and hated. Ji Yao pursed her lips and said with a smile, Congratulations to Senior Brother Yang, when the Lingxiao Palace opens in the future, you must notify me of Bingxingyu, and Ji Yao will also come to ask for a cup of wedding wine. Yang Kai was able to take root here and establish a sect. She was very happy from the bottom of her heart, because Bingxin Valley and Yang Kai had a good relationship, and the 2 sects would watch over and help each other in the future, and who could shake the status of these 2 behemoths in the entire northern territory. Yang Kai smiled and said, This is natural, and it will be necessary to trouble the junior sisters of Bingxin Valley. After a pause, Yang Kai said, "By the way, how do you arrange the tens of thousands of captives in Bingxin Valley?" Ji Yao smiled wryly and said, "Master is also having a headache because of this matter. Although they have made things difficult for me this time, Bing Xinggu has made things difficult for me, but after all, they have no grudge against me, Bing Xinggu. If they kill them all now, it will only ruin me. If the reputation of Bingxin Valley is released, it will appear that Bingxin Valley is weak and deceitful." Yang Kai smiled and said, "If that's the case, let them come over and help me as coolies. If the South Gate Army wants to rearrange the Wenqing sect's guardian array, manpower will be indispensable. Of course, for those who have ice on their hands, those who are killed by disciple Ji Yu will not be tolerated." Ji Yao nodded and said, "Those people have already been killed, and those who are still alive are just some cheering people. But senior brother Yang's suggestion is good, let's see how many people he needs after Master Nanman returns." After the discussion, everyone waited. Fortunately, the ground veins in this place are excellent, and the aura of heaven and earth is rich. You can also meditate and practice while waiting. There are good palaces nearby, which can provide a place for cultivation. 2 days later, the South Gate Army hurried back and made a list to Yang Kai, asking for all kinds of precious materials. Yang Kai glanced at it, and was not stingy, and used the space ring to install several rings for him. Not only that, but Ji Yao also returned to Bingxin Valley, continuously brought those surrendered enemies over there, and ordered them to work for the South Gate Army. All of a sudden, the entire Lingxiao Palace became lively, and there was a lot of voices everywhere, and the crowd was busy inside and out. And as time went by, everyone knew that the guy named Yang Kai occupied the territory that originally belonged to Wenqing sect, and created a sect called Lingxiao Palace here. Bingxin Valley also came to help a lot of people, all of whom were women from Yingying and Yanyan, and Lu Qianyan, Ziyu and others who were familiar with Yang Kai were also on the list. With them sitting here to monitor, the tens of thousands of surrendered enemies would not dare to steal and play tricks. After all, Bing Xinggu explained before that as long as he can take the blame and make meritorious service this time and help arrange the formation of Lingxiao Palace, Bing Xinggu will not blame the past for what happened before, let them go. With this promise, who dares to be careless? On the contrary, many scattered warriors were very excited about the Lingxiao Palace, and inquired about the situation of those Bingxin Valley female disciples, asking how to join and become one of them. After all, this place originally belonged to Wenqingzong's territory, how could people without any skills dare to occupy it? Moreover, these people have recently heard that there are 3 Emperor level 3rd level enshrined in the Lingxiao Palace. Such a lineup is enough to show that the future of the Lingxiao Palace is bright. Once the gate is really opened, it must be another top sect. If you can become one of them, you will benefit endlessly for a lifetime. It's a pity that even the female disciples of Bingxin Valley didn't know how to join Lingxiao Palace, so naturally they couldn't give any answers, which made those surrendered enemies very disappointed. Above the best peak of Lingxiao Palace, inside the palace. This should be the cultivation place that originally belonged to Feng Zan. Yang Kai sat cross-legged, surrounded by high-grade source crystals, and with the operation of the cultivation technique, those high-grade source crystals were turned into powder one by one, gathered into waves of energy and poured into his body, flowing through his limbs and bones, and immersed in his dantian. Since the last battle with Shuo in the ancient land, Yang Kai felt the urgency of his own strength improvement. Although he is now Emperor Zun, he has not yet reached the realm of being invincible, and with the improvement of his strength, the enemies he comes into contact with are getting stronger and stronger. Improve your cultivation. But after the ancient land, he encountered the incident of Bingxin Valley, so he couldn't spare much time to practice. He had refined a lot of panacea, and he didn't even have time to take it. Now that he has free time, he naturally retreats eagerly. After taking one after another of the spirit pills to assist cultivation, piles of source crystals were exhausted, and the strength in the body increased slowly and gradually. Shi Lei and the others also knew that Yang Kai was practicing, so no one dared to bother him. 2 months later, the great sect protector formation of Lingxiao Palace had been fully set up, all the surrendered enemies who came to help had been dismissed, and the female disciples of Bingxin Valley also returned to the valley through the space magic circle. The huge foundation of Lingxiao Palace has regained its silence. The South Gate Army came to see Yang Kai with great interest, and wanted to report the results of their hard work during this time, but was blocked by Ying Fei who was guarding outside. After some unpleasant exchanges, the South Gate army still failed to convince Ying Fei, calling Yang Kai to leave the customs. He can only study the cross-domain space magic circle sullenly. Ji Yao also came to visit several times during the period, but never saw Yang Kai's face. After self-retirement, Yang Kai seemed to be cut off from the outside world all of a sudden, and even the three demon kings didn't know when he would leave the customs. However, the three demon kings also knew that it was not uncommon for them to retreat for 3 to 5 years or even 10 or 20 years when their cultivation had reached the level of Emperor Senior stage, so they were not afraid of any accidents to Yang Kai. Only one person was kept outside the palace every day, and the other two went to play around. Time flies, and after a full year, there was a sudden crackling sound in the palace that had been silent for a long time, as if someone was stretching their muscles and bones. Ying Fei, who was guarding the outside, suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the palace. His falcon-like eyes seemed to be able to see through the heavy restrictions and see the situation inside. Not long after, he looked happy, stood up from where he was, and let out a long roar. After a while, two figures quickly flew from far to near, and after landing on the ground, the figures of Xie Wuwei and Xi Lei were revealed. To be continued. This text is provided by the Breaking Dawn update group at C.A and .AA. Chapter 2665 Return to the South Region. The gate of the palace opened, Yang Kai stepped out from inside, Xi Lei and the others saw their eyes light up, and they all greeted him with joy. Seeing that he was full of energy and spirit, Xie Wuwei smiled and said, "Young Master Yang has retreated this time, it seems that his cultivation has improved a lot." Yang Kai shook his head and said, "It's just a little harvest, but I don't know when I will be promoted." After breaking through to the Emperor Senior realm, Yang Kai felt more and more that the road to promotion was far away. He had been in retreat for nearly a year, and his strength had indeed improved a little, but he still couldn't feel the shackles of the two-layer realm. Ying Fei smiled and said, "The road to cultivation is long and obstructive, so there is no rush." Zai also nodded at the side and said, "Looking at all the emperors in the world, which one is not an old monster who has cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years? Younger Yang has achieved such an achievement at a young age, and he is already a gift from the sky. I am afraid that he will not be able to be promoted in time, eh?" Yang Kai naturally knew this truth, and also understood that haste makes waste in cultivation, so he didn't say more now, but said, "How is the array arrangement here?" Zai quickly handed a simple and unpretentious token to Yang Kai, and replied, "The South Gate army is indeed amazing. It took 2 months to completely improve the protecting sect formation. This is the prohibition of the control formation token." Yang Kai took it, and his spiritual mind probed inside, inspecting it a little, and immediately felt that his body was connected with some existence in this world. As soon as he thought about it, the great array of guardians covering the entire Lingxiao Palace buzzed, and the aura of heaven and earth shook. Zai said from the side, "The Nanman army said that his improved formation is better than the original Wenqingzong's formation, so please rest assured, young Master Yang." Yang Kai responded casually, and didn't doubt it, but looked out of the mountain gate curiously, and said, "Why are there a lot of people gathered outside?" When he inspected the guardian array just now, he found that there were some warriors staying outside the mountain gate, and there were quite a few of them. The cultivation levels of those warriors were not uniform, but most of them were young people, either in groups of 3 or 2, or alone. All of them were full of heroism, and many people looked longingly at the Wanyan Hengsen Iron standing outside the mountain gate, staring at the 3 big characters of Lingxiao Palace, with fascination in their eyes. Ying Fei explained, "They all want to knock on the gate of the mountain and pay homage to the High Heaven Palace." Young Master Yang, the reputation of the High Heaven Palace has spread throughout the Northern Territory, so many young people have come here in the past 6 months. I want to see if there is a chance to join, but now the gate of the mountain is closed, they can't get in, so they can only stay outside. Some people seem to have been waiting for more than half a year, and they are sincere. So that's the case. Yang Kai nodded slightly, not too surprised. After the divine sense swept outside, he didn't take it to heart. The name of Lingxiao Palace has been completely established, and there are 3 major demon kings sitting here, which is naturally a manifestation of its strength. As a newly established sect, it is also the time when it needs to absorb fresh blood. Those scattered outside, how can warriors who have no background and no backing be indifferent? Just like Lu Shanyan, he was also the overlord in the great wilderness starfield back then, but after coming to this star realm, he couldn't even hunt for cultivation resources. This is the disadvantage of not having a sect background. Introducing Bingxin Valley, I am afraid that she is still worrying about her own cultivation resources. How can she practice with peace of mind? Qiyu, Guizhu and others are not like this. In the entire star world, there are so many warriors like this, and not everyone is as lucky as Yang Kai. For them, as long as they can enter the Lingxiao Palace and don't ask for future prosperity, at least they have someone to rely on in the future. The mountain gate of Lingxiao Palace has such an effect before it is opened. If the mountain gate is really opened, I am afraid that there will be a sensation in the whole northern region, and the people who come here will be like crucian carp crossing the river. Shi Lei said. Young Master Yang, is he going to open the mountain gate and recruit more disciples? Yang Kai shook his head and said, no rush. He occupied such a place mainly to plan for his relatives and friends in Gloom Star. Now he doesn't even know how to return to the Hengluo Starfield, so how could he open the mountain gate so easily? But since Yang Yan and Zongdi were able to go to the Hengluo Starfield back then, so could he, but he didn't know how to do it. Perhaps, he should find a way to inquire about Sha Yangan's news, and then ask her about the situation. Feeling ups and downs, Yang Kai turned around and said, I want to go back to the southern region. Which of the 3 demon kings will go with me? Me. Sure enough, the 3 demon kings replied in unison, and then glared at each other. Ying Fei turned around and said, Young Master Yang, I just follow you, why only bring one? Zilei and Xie Wuwei nodded repeatedly, not understanding why Yang Kai made such an arrangement. Yang Kai Dao, you are the Demon King, the 3 of you are on the road together, the limelight is too strong, it is inevitable to attract people's attention, maybe there will be some twists and turns, and I also need to keep people here. Although the Lingxiao Palace is guarded by the Guardian Array, the gate of the mountain is closed, but who knows if there are any unsightly people who come to make trouble. If they all leave, this place will not be safe. Since I created the Lingxiao Palace here, I will definitely settle here in the future. The future will be long. You are afraid what? After hearing this, the 3 of them felt quite reasonable. Anyway, they have already boarded Yang Kai's boat, and they have also become the enshrinements of the High Heaven Palace. If the persecution is too much, it seems too eager for quick success, I'm afraid it will arouse Yang Kai's disgust. Looking at each other, Xie Wuwei smiled and said, then young Master Yang can choose one for himself. No matter who he chooses, we have no second thoughts. Ying Fei and Shi Lei also nodded violently. Asking them to decide by themselves is definitely not giving in to each other. It is better to give the right to choose to Yang Kai. No one can say anything more. Yang Kai nodded and said, then eagle flying. The eagle flying demon king is faster, and this trip back to the southern region may use your foot power. Ying Fei couldn't help but clasped his fists and said, Yang Xiaoying is brilliant. Shi Lei said sullenly, then Brother Xie and I will just keep watching the house. Thank you, both of you. Yang Kai nodded slightly. After the discussion, Yang Kai took Ying Fei to Bingxin Valley through the Space Law Formation, and bid farewell to Bing Yun. After returning to Bingxin Valley after a year, the valley has already taken on a new look, and after experiencing the last ordeal, the entire Bingxin Valley has become more and more united. I didn't stay in Bingxin Valley for a long time, but after half a day, Yang Kai and Ying Fei left through the Space Law Formation. The Northern Territory is hundreds of millions of miles away from the Southern Territory, and the road is far away. There are many dangerous mountains and rivers. It is not easy for the General Emperor to cross it. They can only be passed by flying. Above the clear sky, the top of the white clouds, a giant eagle spread its wings and flew high, as fast as lightning, leaving only faint traces in the air, turning into a series of phantoms. This giant eagle is naturally the body of the eagle-flying demon king. As the overlord of the sky, speed is his strong point. Looking at the 32 demon kings and 8 holy envoys in the entire ancient land, he thinks that no one dares to be the second one. This is why Yang Kai brought him along. Yang Kai sat cross-legged on Ying Fei's back. The back was spacious and flat enough to accommodate a house, and the flight was fast and stable, and he couldn't even feel the slightest headwind. In this world, there are very few people in this world who can willingly serve as a mount at the level of a demon king. But now the Ying Fei demon king is happy with all this and has no complaints. The road was dry and silent. Yang Kai naturally did not waste time, but meditated and cultivated. It was safe and sound to fly all the way. Ordinary warriors could not detect the traces of eagle flying at all, and those who could detect the traces of eagle flying did not dare to provoke them, and retreated away long ago. After 2 full months, Ying Fei suddenly transmitted a voice. Young Master Yang, we should be in the southern region. Where are we going now? Yang Kai slowly opened his eyes, received his zongong, stood up and looked down, and said, "Find a city to find out the direction." The eagle flew so fast that its eyes searched below. Half a day later, a fairly prosperous city came into view, and Ying Fei immediately fluttered his wings and flew down. In a short time, he took his main body, turned into a human form, suppressed his evil spirit, and landed in front of the city gate together with Yang Kai. The two of them didn't intend to enter the city. Yang Kai just stopped a passing martial artist casually, and said, "Excuse me, which direction is Chenizong?" His trip back to the southern territory was mainly for the Cheni sect. Qiyu Ghost Ancestor and his group still stayed in the Cheni sect. Now that he has created the Lingxiao Palace, he naturally wants to send them to the northern territory. For Chenizong, the cultivation environment in Lingxiao Palace is naturally better and safer today. It's just that the southern region is vast. Although he came back here, he didn't know which direction Chenizong was in, so he could only ask someone for the location. The martial artist was in a hurry to enter the city, and was stopped by someone inexplicably, and he was furious. Relying on his Daoyuanjing cultivation base, he was about to go crazy, but he saw a radiant high-grade source crystal in Yang Kai's hand, and suddenly as soon as his eyes lit up, he snatched his hand away, carefully looked at his eyes, and confirmed that it was correct, then put it away, looked at Yang Kai curiously, and said, "Are you a disciple of Cheni sect?" Yang Kai shook his head and said, "No, why do you ask that?" The man looked around, looking extremely cautious, and then said in a low voice, "Since you are not a disciple of Cheni sect, don't ask too many questions. Cheni sect has encountered a disaster and is in trouble." "What do you mean?" Yang Kai's face changed, and he instinctively felt that something was wrong. Logically speaking, Chenizong is just a small sect in the southern region, and it has not been known to everyone. He came here to inquire about the news and did not expect to be able to find out immediately. The first person seemed to know Chenizong very well, and even said that Chenizong had caused a disaster. The man asked curiously, "Did my friend come out after retreating? Why haven't you heard the news yet?" Yang Kai said in a deep voice, "What's going on?" The man whispered, "The Chiba sect has been destroyed." "What?" Yang Kai was shocked and couldn't believe his ears. The man shook his head and said, "The Cheni sect is overestimating its ability to shake the tree. It was wiped out a year ago, and now the Cheni sect is also scattered by the tree. If your friends have any relationship with the Cheni sect, you should withdraw early. It's better, so as not to get angry. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2666. This person seemed to be looking at the piece of high-grade source crystal, kindly mentioning Yang Kai. Yang Kai was stunned for a while. A year ago, he led the 3 demon kings to destroy Wen Qingzong's family, but he never expected that Chenizong would also be wiped out at the same time. Back in Fenggalan City, he was invited by Yi Jinghan, the daughter of the lord of the Cheni sect, to go to the Cheni sect to repair the space magic circle, reopen that small world for the Cheni sect, and retrieve the legacy of his ancestors. The long-standing Qiyu Guizu and Io and others. Chenizong is nothing to him, just some friendship, but Qiyu and others stayed in Chenizong back then. Now that Chenizong has been exterminated, what will happen to Qiyu and others? The few people who came to the Star Realm from the Hengluo Star region with him are all deeply related. Kai Yu is Shanqing Luo's adoptive mother, his mother-in-law. Io is Shui Yu's father, his father-in-law. The ancestor is the elder of his Ling Xiaozong, who spent life and death with him. Only Ji Yu Canyon, the leader of the Sword League, is not familiar with him. Hearing such bad news at first glance, Yang Kai's face was distorted, and the elf's murderous intent instantly filled the air. Staring at the human, "You lied to me." That person didn't take Yang Kai too seriously, but now that he sensed Yang Kai's aura, his expression changed drastically, and he said in shock, "Emperor Prestige." He didn't expect that this young man who casually stopped him from asking questions was actually a genuine Emperor Senior Realm. If he had known this earlier, how could he have dared to be so casual? The cold murderous intent lingered around his side like a substance, making him feel like he was going to die in the next moment, and he couldn't help sweating profusely. "Big, my lord, I didn't lie to you. Chiba sect really it was destroyed, and everyone in the southern region knows about it." Fart. Yang Kai grabbed his neck and lifted him up. In the star field, there are as many sects, big and small, as the hair of a cow. How could it be known to the world that a sect like the Cheni sect was wiped out? Only when such a behemoth as Wenqingzong is destroyed, will the entire northern territory be stirred up. To put it bluntly, even if Chen Yizong is really destroyed, it is just a stone thrown in the vast ocean of the southern territory, at most it will cause some ripples which will soon dissipate. So Yang Kai instinctively felt that this guy was lying. Being strangled by Yang Kai's neck, the man had difficulty breathing and struggled constantly, but it was of no avail. "Young Master Yang," Ying Fei whispered from the side, also seeing that Yang Kai's mood was not quite right, and realized that this Chenny sect should have an extremely important position in Yang Kai's heart. Yang Kai frowned, aware of his gaffe, let go of his hand, put the man down, and said in a deep voice, "Tell me what you know, if it's true, I won't embarrass you." The man coughed for a long time, coughing up his tears, but he didn't dare to be dissatisfied, and after recovering, he said, "My lord, what do you want to know?" The Emperor's senior realm in front of him was quite moody, and he didn't dare to speculate on this person's mind casually, so he could only inquire carefully. "Who killed Chen Yizong?" Yang Kai asked in a deep voice. "It is said that he got into trouble with Liang Sword Sect." Liang Sword Sect? Yang Kai frowned, vaguely remembering where he had heard of this sect. Thinking about it carefully, I have indeed heard that when he was in the land of 4 seasons, he had dealt with disciples of Liang Sword Sect. In my impression, this sect should not be considered a top sect, but its strength should be good. Why did Liang Sword Sect destroy Chenny sect? Yang Kai continued to ask, what is the deep hatred between the two sects? The man hurriedly replied, there is no deep hatred, but Chen Yizong is not guilty, and he is guilty of the crime. A flash of light flashed in Yang Kai's mind, subconsciously said, heavenly puppet. The so-called celestial puppets are heaven-level puppets. The Chenny sect started out with the technique of puppets. The puppets are comparable to the Emperor Venerable realm. The Chenny sect in its heyday was also one of the top sects in the southern region, with a reputation in the star realm. It's just that the descendants are too busy to carry forward the puppet art. With the decline of the inheritance from generation to generation, Chenny sect eventually became a low-level sect, and even the art of envoy puppet has been lost a lot. Fortunately, Yang Kai repaired the space magic circle for them last time, reopened the dusty little world, retrieved the long-lost secret techniques of Chen Yizong, and reactivated those heavenly puppets. And Lu Yan's spiritual puppet body was also obtained from that small world. If it wasn't for this, Lu Yan might not have a real body until now. Hearing Yang Kai mention the word, sky puppet, the man kept nodding his head and said, exactly, it turns out that adults also know about Chenny sect's sky puppet. A few years ago, Chenny sect used some method to obtain the legacy of their ancestors, regained the control of the sky puppet that had been dusty for many years. The Liang Sword sect seemed quite interested in this, so he found an excuse to destroy the Chenny sect. So simple. Yang Kai's face was dark and ugly. The man smiled bitterly and said, the prosperity of the world is for profit, and the chaos of the world is for profit. The master of Chenny sect is only at the 3rd level of Daoyuan, but his subordinates have a sky puppet whose strength is comparable to that of an emperor. It's hard for people to remember. This is true, if the Chenny sect really has a strong emperor in the emperor's state, it is nothing to have a sky puppet who is comparable to the emperor's state. Because, if you have something as good as a sky puppet in your hand, of course it will attract people to covet it. After pondering for a while, Yang Kai said coldly, the top 10 puppets of the Chenny sect, each of which has the strength comparable to the Emperor's senior realm, how can the Liang Sword sect easily destroy them? He knows the sky puppet's ability, because Lu Yan has a white tiger sky puppet in his hand, which can indeed display a combat power comparable to that of the Emperor's 1st level. Although the Liang Sword sect is not bad, it is not a top sect, how could it be possible to eat such a piece of fat in one bite? The man smiled wryly and said, I don't know about this villain either. Everyone is very surprised. I'm afraid that the name of Chen Yizong's sky puppet is not worthy of its name. This is true. Although the sky puppet is powerful in combat, it still needs to be controlled by humans. There is no Emperor senior realm in the Chenny sect, so I am afraid that it is indeed impossible to exert the full power of the sky puppet. But Yang Kai always felt that things were not that simple. Chenny sect is destroyed, what about the disciples of Chenny sect? Yang Kai asked nervously. The man replied, dead or escape, I'm afraid not many survived, but I heard that some people were arrested, and among those arrested, there seemed to be a star from the star field of the lower plane. Host. Is this true? Yang Kai's eyes flashed brightly. The man smiled wryly and said, how dare you deceive your lord, many people in the star realm come from the star field below, but there are not many people who are star masters. It is said that to become a star master, one must refine the stars yuewen. I don't know how that guy is able to get the complete star origin. Although his cultivation level is not high, he has a bright future. This matter is also the news released by Liang Sword Sect. Everyone in the southern region knows about it. What are they doing with this news? Yang Kai asked with a strange expression, and his eagerness calmed down a lot. The star master mentioned by this population, if nothing else, should be I.O. Since I.O. is fine, then Caillou and others may be fine too. Of course, this is just the best guess, and it is also possible that other people have encountered accidents. What else can I do? Of course, spread the news so that the auction can be held, so that adults know that Liang Sword Sect will hold an auction in Liang City in a month, and the items to be auctioned are those days of Chen Yizong. Puppet, and that Star Master. The Star Master can also be auctioned. Yang Kai was stunned. The man smiled wryly and said, "Your Excellency, you are joking. There is a complete source of stars in the main body of the star. If it can be stripped out and transferred to a qualified disciple under the sect, then this disciple will have a bright future and will naturally attract people." Hearing what he said, Yang Kai suddenly remembered that when he entered the Starlight Passage and met Yin Lesheng at the beginning of the year, Yin Lesheng seemed to be very interested in the origin of the stars in his body, and he also said that there is a secret method that can be peeled off and passed on. Looking at it now, it's not Yin Lesheng's nonsense. The complete origin of the stars is extremely important to the cultivation of warriors. In this case, I.O. is sure that his life is safe now, and Yang Kai is worried about Caillou and the others. 1 month later, Liang City. Yang Kai murmured to himself, already having a plan in mind. Now that the Chenny sect has been destroyed, and it has been a year since then, no matter how anxious he is, it is useless. At this point, he can only play by ear. The last question, where is Chen Yizong, and where is Liang City? Yang Kai looked at the man and asked in a deep voice. The man dared not answer, obediently pointing in 2 directions. There was no response for a long time, and when I looked up again, the young man had long since disappeared. A feeling of escape from death came from my heart. This man didn't realize until this moment that his clothes were all wet with sweat, and his whole body seemed to have disappeared from the sky. Like fished out of the lake. In the void, Yang Kai and Ying Fei galloped side by side, as fast as lightning. Seemingly sensing that Yang Kai was in a bad mood, Ying Fei didn't dare to disturb him at will, but secretly felt that someone might be in trouble. Yang Kai dared to destroy a behemoth like the Wenqing sect in the Northern Territory. Now that Liang Sword Sect provokes him, I'm afraid there will be no good end. After a long silence, Ying Fei said, "Young Master Yang, I don't know if it's an illusion, but I always feel that something is wrong with this." Yang Kai nodded slightly, and said, "I can feel it too. What does the Demon King think is wrong?" The so-called authorities are obsessed, but bystanders are clear. Previously, he was focused on inquiring about Chen Yizong, Qiyu and others, and didn't think too much about it. Now that he was flying in the sky and was blown by the cold wind, his mind calmed down and he noticed many flaws. When Ying Fei mentioned it again, he immediately understood that it was not because he was suspicious, but that something was really wrong. Ying Fei heard the words and said, "Since the Chenny sect was exterminated a year ago, why did the auction not be held until today? If there is such an intention, the auction should have started long ago. Not only that, this matter it seems to be deliberately making a fuss, as if spreading the news to someone, and this year is the time for the news to ferment, and some people are afraid that the news will not be delivered." To be continued. To be continued. This book, the text is provided by the Breaking Dawn Update Group at C.AAAA. Chapter 2667 Reopen Emperor Tiangu. Chenny Sect. When Yang Kai came here last time, this place was considered a majestic mountain with a beautiful world. But when I came back today, everything I saw was dilapidated and the scenery was desolate. Between the mountains and fields, there are ruins and walls, and the pavilions that originally stood in the forest have basically collapsed. The traces of the war can be seen everywhere. The blood on the ground has long since dried up. Yang Kai flew slowly in the air, his face gloomy like water. Spiritual thoughts swept across, and now there is no living person in the huge Chenny sect, only a few animals and birds are occasionally found in the mountains, and there seems to be a rotten smell in the air. Chiba sect was really wiped out. Although Chen Yizong is not a great sect, it is a sect that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. In its heyday, it was a hegemony in the southern region, with countless disciples and strong like clouds. There is no such sect as Chenny sect. A wave of ignorant karmic fire was churning in his chest, making Yang Kai feel extremely uncomfortable, although it was just an intuition, but Yang Kai always felt that this matter had something to do with him. It's just that after thinking about it, he couldn't figure out what kind of connection he had with Chenny Zongmiman. Perhaps, the only way to understand the reason for this is to find Liang Zhanzong and ask him clearly. Yang Kai raised his head suddenly, and looked towards the location of Chenny Zong's main hall, where the aura of several living people emerged. His eyes sank, his body swayed and he galloped over there. After a while, it landed in front of the main hall. There was a statue standing in front of the main hall. It was the portrait of the ancestor of Chenny Zong for future generations to look up and worship. However, the statue had already collapsed at this moment, as if someone had chopped it down with a sword. Everything was neat and tidy, showing the extraordinary strength of the person who shot it. Yang Kai stretched out his hand to touch the fracture, and felt a breath of agile wind from it. In the main hall, a smell of meat wafted out, and the voices of several people could be vaguely heard from inside. Yang Kai pushed the door open and entered, wrapped in a gust of cold wind. In the hall, several people raised the fire and were cooking unknown broth, sitting on the ground, drinking in big bowls, eating meat in large pieces, looking like they were enjoying themselves. Hearing the movement, several people turned their heads at the same time. An older man got up, stared at Yang Kai and said, "Who are you?" Yang Kai glanced at them and found that they were not Chenny sect's disciples, so he was a little disappointed. Thinking about it, if the Chenny sect's surviving disciples would have fled incognito, why would they do these things in the main hall of their own sect? The most powerful of a few people are only at the first level of Daoyuan, and the rest are only at the Saint King level. They seem to be scattered warriors with no background. The Chenny sect was destroyed, and such a large mountain gate was barren, so it was a good place for people like them. Yang Kai didn't have any interest in entangled with them, he just said, "Is there no one alive in Chenny sect?" In case their eyesight is not enough, let out a little coercion when speaking. Several people suddenly felt like they were facing a formidable enemy, and the face of the man who pretended to be majestic changed, and his body became half shorter in an instant, and he looked at Yang Kai tremblingly and said, "I have never seen it before." As expected, Yang Kai nodded, looked around, and didn't say anything more. The man's forehead was dripping with cold sweat, and he didn't dare to move. After a long time, Yang Kai turned around and walked out. Until this moment, several warriors in the palace felt as if they had received amnesty, and they softened their bodies one after another. For them, if a strong man like Yang Kai wanted to, he could take their lives easily, and these so-called strong men were originally moody, no one knows when to kill. Therefore, when you go out to practice and walk, it is best to avoid someone who is stronger than you if you can, and never deal with them. This near-death escape made several people glance at each other hastily. They didn't care about the almost cooked broth. They fled out of the hall one after another, and rushed to the distance. The speed was so fast that I only hated my parents for losing 2 legs. In the nameless valley, Yang Kai looked left and right for a while, and after a while, he stood in a certain place with bright eyes. Yang Kai is very familiar with this valley. He had been here the last time he came to Chenny sect, because this is the forbidden area of Chenny sect. Since the past, no one has been able to enter here except for the Lord of Chenny sect. On the surface, this is just an ordinary valley, but in fact it is covered by a huge phantom formation, which hides the space formation that enters the independent small world of Chenny Zong. Emperor Tiangu. Yang Kai also finally remembered the name of Chenny Zong's independent small world. It was in Emperor Tiangu that Yang Kai encountered a powerful corpse puppet, and Lu Yan also got his own spirit puppet body. There should have been a big battle in this valley that day, because the surrounding area is full of traces left by the battle. Dried blood and white bones can be seen everywhere. It seems that when the Chiba sect was destroyed that day, many people died here. In the middle of the valley, where the space magic circle was located, Yang Kai carefully inspected the damaged magic circle, and after a while, his eyes lit up. He could tell that the space magic circle was directly destroyed by someone with brute force, and the person who made the move acted in a hurry, as if there was something urgent at that time. Yang Kai couldn't help guessing, was the person who destroyed the magic circle the Chenny sect master Yihen? If it is him, then this news is not too bad, because there is a very high possibility that there are disciples of Chenny Zong still alive in the Dishan Valley on the other side of the space magic circle. If he was Yihen, knowing that the sect was about to lose its security, he would definitely transfer his disciples and close people into Emperor Tiangu, and then destroy the space magic circle to save their lives. Dishan Valley is an independent small world, although it is not very big, but as long as the space magic circle is destroyed, it will be very difficult for anyone in this world to enter again. The hastily destroyed traces of the magic circle also illustrate this point. With flashes of thought in his mind, Yongkai stood up and said, Demon King, Guardian. He wants to reopen the space magic circle and enter the Emperor Tiangu to take a look, then everything will be clear. Yingfei nodded, and disappeared in a jiffy, not knowing where he was hiding. With a sweep of Yongkai's sleeves, the gust of wind blew away the debris on the damaged space magic circle, and he reached out and groped for the magic circle in front of him. The space array of Chenizong was repaired by Yongkai last time. Although it was destroyed again this time, it is not difficult for Yongkai to restore it, and it can even be said that he is familiar with it. The power of space law rose up and down, and the vibration and buzzing of the space were transmitted, and the place where Yongkai was located quickly became illusory, and the space seemed to have collapsed. In the dark, there seems to be a magical power that resonates with Yongkai, and the broken shore uses this power as the source to reconnect. Wow! A dark hole suddenly opened, and the inside of the hole was chaotic and nothingness, giving people a feeling of devouring everything, making people feel uneasy. Void Tunnel. Yongkai urged the force to maintain the stability of the void tunnel, stood up and greeted, Demon King. Yingfei reappeared beside him, staring at the void tunnel with awe-inspiring eyes. Even if he was as strong as him, he didn't dare to underestimate this strange existence, because once he got caught in it, he might be lost forever in the void cracks and couldn't find a way out. Yongkai waved his hand loudly, and Emperor Yuan wrapped him up and rushed directly into the corridor. Soon, the figures of the two disappeared, together with the formed void corridor. On Emperor Tiangu, above the space law formation, Yongkai and Yingfei appeared at the same time. There was no one in the surrounding area, but Yongkai searched the ground with his eyes like watching the fire, and soon his eyes lit up. He saw some blood on the ground, and there were quite a few footprints. Yingfei sniffed his nose and said, there are quite a few people here. As the Demon King, his sense of smell is naturally excellent. Yongkai nodded, his eyes locked in one direction, and said, over there. He remembered that there was a valley over there, and there were many caves. The corpse puppets he encountered at the beginning were also encountered there. If any disciples of the Cheni sect survived and escaped here, they should have landed in that valley among. The two flew towards the valley one after the other. This Emperor Sky Valley is not big, but it is a small world of its own, and the aura of the world is good, so it becomes the foundation of the Cheni sect. But after a stick of incense, the two of them had already reached the top of the valley. Yongkai did not hide his figure, but deliberately let out his breath and fell down. Around the valley, there was a rustling sound, followed by figures, one after another. Warriors with different levels of strength emerged from the woods, all looking towards Yongkai with pale faces. They have been hiding here for more than a year, and no outsiders have come here at all. They also feel that this is the safest place in the world, because the magic circle outside has been destroyed, and no one can enter this place. But today, two outsiders broke in here. This made the surviving disciples of Chiba sect panic, not knowing what kind of fate awaited them. The scene of the sect being destroyed a year ago is vivid in my mind, and the sadness poured by blood and tears that day has been fermenting in my heart. Could it be that even those of them who are still struggling to survive are coming to an end? Two figures flashed out of the largest cave, one tall and straight, the other graceful. Senior Sister Yi, Senior Brother Du. Many Cheni sect disciples saluted one after another. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian came hand in hand. Different from the panic of other disciples, their eyes glistened more with joy. Because Yi Hen told them when he sent them into Emperor Sky Valley that day, if someone could reopen Emperor Sky Valley, that person must be Yongkai. So when they noticed that an outsider had broken into Emperor Tiangu, their first thought was that Yongkai was coming. Now that I take a closer look, it is indeed so. That familiar figure came into view. It was simply the best news this year. Young Master Yang. Yi Jinghan had just finished speaking, and tears were already streaming down her face. When I saw Yongkai come back last time, Chenizong was full of vigor, regained the legacy of his ancestors, and retrieved the secret technique that Chenizong had lost for many years, but now it has only been a few years, and things have changed. Yi Jinghan, thinking of my father who didn't know whether he was alive or dead, I couldn't help feeling a little emotional, and I couldn't help it. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2668 Doubt. Chapter 2668 Doubt. Brother Yang. Although Du Xian was not as emotional as Yi Jinghan, he clasped his fists excitedly. Because as long as Yang Kai comes, then they will have the opportunity to leave here, and they will not be trapped in this Emperor Tian Valley for the rest of their lives. Although Chen Yizong was wiped out for no reason and the enemy family is powerful, but as the senior brother of Chen Yizong's younger generation, he has the responsibility and the obligation to avenge the sect. If you want to take revenge, you must first improve your strength, and the second is to leave here. The improvement of strength is his own business, but if he wants to leave here, he can only rely on Yang Kai. Miss Yi, Brother Du. Yang Kai nodded slightly and sighed, please forgive me. He didn't know what to say. Anyone who suffered from family destruction would not be in a good mood, and he also understood Yi Jinghan's gaffe. The three of them exchanged a few words, which made those Chenyi sect disciples who didn't know the truth see the clues, and soon, there was a burst of discussion and everyone guessed Yang Kai's identity. Because after hiding here, Du Xian told them, don't be discouraged, don't give up lightly, they still have a chance to leave here, have a chance to avenge their sect, as long as a person named Yang Kai arrives. Now that this person named Yang Kai came, many Chenyi sect disciples cheered up one after another, looking at Yang Kai with fiery eyes. Is everyone here? Yang Kai glanced around and didn't see the person he wanted to see. Although it was expected, he was still a little disappointed. Not many people escaped from the Chenyi sect this time, and it was only 500 people. Now they are all gathered in this valley, and their cultivation levels are also uneven, and there are only less than 10 people in Daoyuan. Young Master Yang, please speak inside. Yi Jinghan recovered a little, wiped the corners of her eyes, and stretched out her hand to signal. Yang Kai nodded, and walked towards the cave. Ying Fei followed closely behind. His aura was not obvious, but people couldn't see the depth. The cave has been rested for a while, and Yi Jinghan, Du Xian and others have lived here for more than a year. With the ambition of revenge, they practice hard, hoping that one day they can kill the enemy with their own hands. There is no furniture in the cave, and several people are sitting on the ground. Apart from Yang Kai and Ying Fei, there are Yi Jinghan and Du Xian. It seems that among the Chenyi sect disciples who survived, they are the only two who have cultivation status highest. What's going on specifically? I only heard that Chenyi sect was destroyed by Liang sword sect, is this true or not? Yang Kai asked. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian looked at each other, the former nodded slightly, and the latter said, Brother Yang is right, the one who killed my Chenyi sect was indeed Liang sword sect. There are rumors outside that because of the existence of the sky puppet, the Liang sword sect has benefited from the business. Is this true? Du Xian said angrily. The Liang sword sect is a master of swordsmanship and focuses on swordsmanship. Even if my Chenyi sect has a puppet, how can I make them fall in love? There is a mastermind behind this matter. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows and said, how do you say that? Yi Jinghan and Du Xian looked at each other again, seeming to hesitate to speak. Yang Kai Dao, there is nothing bad to say. Since I am here, I naturally want to investigate this matter clearly. There are also my friends in Chenyizong. When Du Xian heard this, he opened his mouth and said, Brother Yang, do you still remember that watching sea? Yang Kai frowned. Sister Hua. Why didn't he remember watching sea? He just heard what Du Xian said. The destruction of Chenyizong seemed to have something to do with watching sea, which made him suspicious. Moreover, after they separated from watching sea in the Sea of Aa Broken Stars, they never saw each other again. Yang Kai didn't know where watching sea went. Sister Hua knew a lot of his secrets, especially about Xiaoshuanji, but he felt that watching sea was trustworthy, so he gave her freedom, and even gave her a precious magic pill. Du Shandao. After the Broken Star Sea ended, watching sea suddenly came to Chenyi sect. It is said that he had an agreement with Brother Yang to wait for Brother Yang at Chenyi sect. Yang Kai nodded and said, yes, there is indeed such a thing. When he was separated from watching sea in the Sea of Aa Broken Stars that day, Yang Kai once said that if she can't find her in the future, she will go to Chenyi sect and wait, because Kai Yu and others are still in Chenyi sect, so he must go back to Chenyizong went. Now it seems that Sister Hua really kept her promise, and came to Chenyi sect after leaving the Sea of Aa Broken Stars. Du Xian said with a strange expression, Brother Yang, do you know the real background of this Master Hua? Yang Kai replied, Star God Palace disciple. This is not a secret, he has known it for a long time, and Watching Sea was ordered by her master to go to Fenggalan City to investigate the death of Han Leng, an abandoned disciple of the Star God Palace. Yang Kai was taken captive into mysterious Shaoji and taken as a sole slave. Du Xian was surprised. Brother Yang actually knew. He thought that Yang Kai knew nothing about this matter. How could he know that Yang Kai was like a mirror in his heart? He thought that watching Si used Yang Kai, so he hesitated to speak, but now it seems that things are not what he thought like that. He doesn't know what's going on now. Yang Kai frowned and said, Brother Du, if you have something to say, I can trust Sister Hua, and the matter of Chenny sect should have nothing to do with her. If she couldn't believe it, it was impossible for Yang Kai to let her go free, with the soul seal in his hands, controlling her life and death at any time. Du Xian pondered for a while, and then said, Brother Yang, when that Master Hua returned to Chenny Zong again, she was already Emperor Zun, but she said that she had an appointment with you first, and she would wait for you in Chenny Zong, so Master invited her to live in the sect, during which she got very close to Kai Yu and other guests. Watching Si naturally knows the relationship between Kai Yu and others and Yang Kai, so there is no problem with being close to each other, and Watching Si has also been promoted to Emperor Zun during the trip to the Broken Star Sea, and she has lived up to the one that Yang Kai gave her, miraculous pill. We have always lived in peace. My Chenny sect has regained many untold secrets, and the sect has an emperor like Mr. Hua as a guest to guard it. It is naturally prosperous. Du Xian's face showed a look of nostalgia, as if I miss that period of time, it's a pity that the heavens failed to fulfill people's wishes. Suddenly, one day, a very powerful man came to Chenny Zong, and he came to find Master Hua. Although I can't see through that man's cultivation, but it is definitely an emperor's senior realm. No one knows exactly what that man and Master Hua said, but it was that time that we found out that Master Hua was a disciple of the Star God Palace, and also a disciple of an elder of the Star God Palace. After that person left, the suzerain went to visit Master Hua, but there was no sign of Master Hua. No one knew where she had gone, but everyone thought that Master Hua was a member of the Star God Palace, and her cultivation base was also Emperor Zunjing. I'm afraid that no one would dare to make things difficult for her, so naturally she didn't take this matter to heart. But just a month after that incident, Liang Sword sect suddenly attacked my Chenny sect for no reason and wiped out my Chenny sect. Yang Kai listened for a long while before he calmly said, So you guess, this matter has something to do with Sister Hua. How can this be related? Du Shandao. It's not a guess, because when the sect was in trouble that day, the strong man who had come to look for Master Hua also made a move. I have seen that person from afar, although I can't see it clearly, but the figure is not good wrong. That person is definitely at the second level of Emperor Senior. If not, I, Chenny Zongtian, will be exterminated. How can I suffer from the disaster of extermination? Yi Jinghan nodded at the side and said, That's right, I've seen that person too. Most of my Chiba sect sky puppets were subdued by that person, that's why they couldn't resist Liang Sword sect. When Yang Kai heard this, his expression turned ugly, and he thought to himself that it was no wonder that Chenny sect was no match even if Yutian puppet, and it turned out that there was a powerhouse at the Emperor Senior level who intervened. It's just, what the hell is going on here? If the strong man at the second level of Emperor Zun is from the Star God Palace, then he can only find Watching Si. Watching Si is also a disciple of the Star God Palace, and he did not betray his master. He just failed to complete the task assigned by his master. Forget it, it doesn't make sense to use the hands of others to destroy Chenny Zong in a fit of anger. In the dark, Yang Kai always felt that there was a breath of conspiracy. Looking up at Du Xian, Yang Kai said, Brother Du mentioned the black hand behind the scenes, could it be? He pointed to the sky. Du Xian smiled wryly and shook his head. I don't know, but Liang Sword sect doesn't need to trouble Chenny sect with me for no reason, it must be instigated by someone. He had doubts about Watching Si and Xingshan Palace before, but now that he thinks about it carefully, if Xingshan Palace is going to be unfavorable to Chenny Zong, there is no need to be so troublesome. Xingshan Palace is the overlord of the southern region, the great emperor's sect, casually just crushed Chiba sect. For a while, everyone fell silent. Young Master Yang, you came in from the outside, have you ever heard about my father? Yi Jinghan looked at Yang Kai with some trepidation. Yang Kai shook his head and said, I have only returned to the southern territory not long ago, I only know the general idea, the specific situation is not clear, is Sect Master Yi not dead? Yi Jinghan burst into tears and said, I don't know, when my father sent us into the Emperor Sky Valley that day, he destroyed the space circle outside, and we don't know what happened outside. Du Shandao. Master originally wanted to send Kai Yu and other guests here, but they didn't agree. Instead, they fought to the death with other disciples to protect the sect. Now, their lives and deaths are uncertain. Yongkai nodded slightly. Chiyu and the others are all overlords in the Hengluo starfield. Although they were a bit unable to use their hands and feet after coming to the star realm, they received great care after entering the Chenni sect. In times of crisis, they naturally would not stand idly by with their nature. You don't need to care about their affairs. Since they do this, it's their choice whether to live or die. Yongkai sighed. Now he can only confirm that Io is still alive. Kai Yugizu and Jiyu Kenyan don't know either. Life and death made him worry. Standing up, he said, 1 month later, Liang Sword Sect will hold an auction in Liang City, and the item being auctioned is the sky puppet of your Chenni sect. Do you want to go and have a look? What? Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were both shocked. Yongkai sneered. This auction is the key. As long as you go there, you will know whether it is right or wrong. Chapter 2669 Streaming Film City. Hearing that the Liang Sword Sect actually wanted to publicly auction off the sky puppet of the Chenni sect, Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were furious. The fact that the sect was destroyed was due to their lack of strength, so they couldn't complain, but the sect's most precious treasure was still taken away. Going to the auction is simply humiliating. It is equivalent to digging out the corpse and flogging the corpse after death. Both Yi Jinghan and Du Xian wished they could fly to Liang City, destroy the auction, and take back those puppets. But after the anger passed, his face was full of slump. His ambition was high, but his strength was not enough. Even if he really went to Liang City, he would probably end up beating a dog with meat buns and never returning. They hid here, didn't they just want to accumulate strength and wait for revenge one day? Seeing their concerns, Yongkai said, no matter what you choose, I will go to Liang City. Du Xian was startled and said worriedly, but Brother Yang, Liang City is the foundation of Liang Sword Sect. Since they dare to hold an auction, they will definitely be fully prepared. Wouldn't it be a trap for you to go like this, eh? Yongkai grinned and said, then we have to see if their net is big or my head is hard. Brother Yang, you. Du Xian lost his mind, and admired his arrogance. His eyes lit up and said, could it be that you are already the emperor? Yi Jinghan's expression lifted after hearing this. The two of them hadn't paid attention to Yongkai's cultivation. After all, when they met Yongkai that day, his cultivation was about the same as the two of them, but now seeing Yongkai's self-confidence, they couldn't help but use their spiritual sense to investigate. Spiritual thoughts sank like stones into the sea, without any waves, but there was a vague emperor's will lingering around Yongkai's side. Sure enough, he is Emperor Zun. Both Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were horrified, shocked by Yongkai's speed of cultivation and growth. But after thinking about it, isn't it true that there are many unmatched geniuses in this world who have climbed the martial arts extremely fast? It is precisely because of these many geniuses that this world becomes so wonderful. Du Xian said solemnly, but Brother Yang, even if you are Emperor Zun, Liang City is still a den of dragons and tigers. The implication is that it is impossible to break through. Not to mention that the Liang Sword Sect already had a suzerain of Emperor Senior Realm, and the mastermind who was involved in the extermination of Chenni Zong's sect alone was not something that ordinary emperors could provoke. If the Xingshan Palace was really involved in this matter, then the dumb Chenni Zong would definitely suffer. Yongkai waved his hand and said, if it's not the Dragon's Lake and the Tiger's Den, wouldn't it be boring to run through it? Both Yi Jinghan and Du Xian looked at Yongkai in a daze, and they didn't know where he had such great confidence, but when they thought of the sect being destroyed and countless disciples dying tragically, the two of them felt a rush of blood in their hearts. Qi nodded and said, okay, let's go too. Even if we try our best to die, we must snatch the sky puppet back. Although the aura is good, both of them know that with their strength, it is impossible to do such a thing. If they really go to Liang City, once their identities are exposed, they will probably lead to encirclement and suppression. Since the enmity between Liang Sword Sect and Chenni Sect has been forged, it must be eradicated. Yongkai smiled and said, it should be like this. He wanted to bring Yi Jinghan and Du Xian with him, not because he expected them to do anything. The two Daoyuan realms might not be able to accomplish anything in such a vortex of struggle. But they were members of Chenni Zong after all, and one was the daughter of the Chenni Sect master, one is the younger generation of Chenni Sect disciples. Yongkai took them to Liang City to pick quarrels and troubles, and he is well known as a teacher, otherwise he is an outsider intervening in Chenni Sect's affairs, to put it mildly, asking Lu to draw his sword to help when he sees injustice. The ugly point is that the dog is meddling with the mouse. He doesn't want to reveal his relationship with Io and others for the time being. Now that they had made a decision, Yi Jinghan and Du Xian no longer hesitated, and recruited some confidant disciples to carefully advise them to stay in the Emperor's Sky Valley and practice well. If they did not return, the revival of the Chenni sect would fall to them yun on the shoulder. Those Chenni sect disciples who were naturally provoked tried hard to persuade them, but both of them had already made up their minds. How could a few words can change their original intentions? Half a day later, Yang Kai took the two of them out of Emperor Sky Valley, and returned to the Chenni sect's nameless valley through the space magic circle. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian are both natives of the southern region, so they are naturally familiar with Liang Sword Sect and Liang City, and they have been to Liang City a few times, so they immediately pointed out the direction for Yang Kai and drove fast. In just 3 days, a group of 4 arrived in Liang City. From a distance, Liang City can be considered to occupy a vast area, majestic, the city wall is more than 10 feet high, and a huge sword hangs in the air above the city gate. As if it will fall at any time and cut the earth in two, it is common for warriors to enter and exit. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian followed behind Yang Kai with uneasy expressions, and flew outside the city gate. According to the thinking of the two, since they are entering the enemy's lair this time, it is natural to change their appearance first, or at least make some disguise, so as not to be too ostentatious and cause unnecessary trouble, and then wait for the opportunity to act secretly. But Yang Kai didn't let them change their appearance, instead let them show their true colors. The two of them were worried all the way, and when they got outside Liang City, they became even stiffer and their hearts were full of uneasiness. Although they have already made good mental preparations for death, but death must be worthwhile. If they die for no reason, they might as well stay in Emperor Tian Valley and spend hundreds of years cultivating painstakingly. It's just that Yang Kai has a well-thought-out appearance, but it makes it difficult for the two of them to ask carefully. At the city gate, many warriors are queuing up to enter the city. This is the case in every slightly prosperous city. Liang City is good, not to mention that the auction will be held soon. I don't know how many people in the entire northern territory are interested in Chiba Zong. The puppet who is interested, and even the Star Master who has the complete star origin, naturally attracts warriors from all directions to come in an endless stream. Today's Liang City can be said to be full of Tao sources, emperors are as many as dogs, and strong people are like clouds. In the city lord's mansion, Li Qingyan, the suzerain of Liang Sword Sect, sits in person. As a first-tier emperor, Li Qingyan is a master of swordsmanship, and he is considered an extremely strong man in the northern region. With his status, he doesn't need to be here, but with the holding of the auction, there are more and more emperor prestige realms in Liang City, and many top sects have sent strong men to participate. During this period of time, Li Qingyan didn't know how many strong men he had visited. None of those strong men could be provoked by Liang Sword Sect. Yu Li had to visit him once or twice. On weekdays, Liang Sword Sect did not have this opportunity to befriend so many strong men. But after coming and going, Li Qingyan was too tired to deal with it, and he didn't even have time to practice, and with the arrival of the auction, he felt a kind of palpitation in his heart. Although his cultivation base is not extremely high, but because he majors in killing swordsmanship, he is extremely sensitive to some crises. He always felt that something big was going to happen in this auction, and if one went wrong, Liang Sword Sect might be wiped out. However, the auction would not go ahead unless it was held, and Li Qingyan had no intention of resisting the order of that big man. With a long sigh, the Emperor Bao Yushu's sword lying in front of him trembled slightly, as if sensing the master's change of mood. "Sovereign," a voice came from outside the door. "What's the matter?" Li Qingyan raised his eyes, with a trace of exhaustion on his face. If he had a choice, he would rather practice swords in the sect. Want to stir up wind and rain. But in the eyes of that lord, he and even the entire Liang Sword Sect are nothing more than a chess piece, falling on the chessboard, he cannot help himself. The following disciples report that they have discovered 2 remnants of Chenni sect. The voice replied, and it seems to be the daughter of the Chenni sect master and the eldest disciple of this generation. Where? Li Qingyan's eyes drooped. At the city gate, I am about to enter the city. Li Qingyan's eyes narrowed slightly, and the uneasy feeling became more and more intense, as if an invisible big mouth was biting him, and the strong sense of crisis made his skin feel cold. He hasn't felt this way for many years. Yushu's sword clanging continuously made him more and more sure of his feelings. The people outside the door waited quietly, but there was no response from the suzerain for a long time, so they could only wait bitterly. At the same time, at the city gate, the crowd panicked and ran around. A group of Liang sword sect's disciples surrounded Yang Kai and the other four, while those who had nothing to do with him retreated and watched from afar. Liang sword sect destroyed Chenny sect. Although he himself felt it was very sudden, since he had formed a deadly feud, he naturally had to find out the details of the other party, especially those who escaped. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian's status in Chenny sect is not low, and their portraits have long been circulated outside. What's more, Yang Kai led them on a rampage, and had no intention of queuing up to enter the city at all. The warriors guarding the city gate are not taken seriously at all. So as soon as they entered the city, Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were recognized by the Liang sword sect disciples guarding the city gate. It's okay for the enemy to come to his door and still be so arrogant and provocative. Without anyone's orders, dozens of disciples of Liang sword sect immediately set up a net and stared at them. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian looked at each other and smiled wryly. They didn't expect Yang Kai to be so bold at all. It's nothing more than not letting himself cover up his true colors, but now he wants to take the initiative to provoke. What exactly does Yang Kai want to do? Is he so confident that he can come and go freely in Liang City? But now, it is useless to regret. Thinking of what these disciples of Liang sword sect did in Chenny sect a year ago, the eyes of the two gradually turned red, and traces of murderous intent slowly permeated. Even if he died, he would have to pull a few backs, so that he would live up to the name of Chenny sect disciple. You two are so brave, you actually dared to break into my Liang city. It seems that the people of Chenny sect really don't know how to write death. The leader Dao Yuanjing looked at Yi Jinghan and Du Xian, and sneered, but after his eyes turned to Yang Kai and Ying Fei, he showed suspicion. The people of Chiba sect got mixed up together. To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2670 collects some interest. Although the existence of Yang Kai and Ying Fei made this person suspicious, he didn't take it too seriously. Chenny sect is just a small sect in the southern region, which is not as good as their Liang sword sect. How? This is Liang City, the foundation of Liang sword sect. Who can be presumptuous? His eyes lingered on Yang Kai for a while, and the man snorted coldly. Who is your excellency? If you are wise, leave quickly, don't make mistakes. Yang Kai turned a deaf ear to his words, just looked at Du Xian and Yi Jinghan and asked, do you want to charge some interest first? A group of miscellaneous soldiers, Yang Kai didn't even have the interest to fight, but for Yi Jinghan and Du Xian, who had a deep hatred in their hearts, they were the best targets to vent. Hearing this, Du Xian's expression was shocked, and he shouted loudly, okay, Brother Yang will protect the law. Yang Kai hummed and stood quietly. Presumptuous. Seeing that Du Xian was so arrogant, the disciple of Liang sword sect was furious. He waved his hand and said, take it for me. Clank-a. The sound of the sword sounded, the light of the sword fluttered, and more than a dozen disciples of the Liang sword sect intertwined into one body, covering each other and fighting forward, with awe-inspiring sword energy and a heavenly sword intent. Brother! Yi Jinghan shouted coquettishly. Du Xian understood it, and immediately turned around to face Yi Jinghan back to back. The two of them danced their hands together, and ball-shaped things flew out one by one. Ka-cha-cha. After bursts of crisp sounds, the flying balls actually folded, and a miraculous change took place under the eyes of everyone, turning into lifelike monsters in the blink of an eye. The aura was ups and downs, and 4 puppet beasts suddenly appeared in everyone's field of vision. 1 python, 1 lizard, 1 wolf, 1 bird. Each one is like a living creature. If it is not that there is no vitality at all, I am afraid that anyone will regard them as real monsters. Yang Kai's eyes brightened. Although he had been to and dealt with Chenny sect last time, many of the secret arts of Chenny sect were lost at that time. Thanks to him opening the Dishan Valley, he was able to retrieve the secrets of exercises that had been lost for many years up. At that time, he didn't see Chenny Zong's real means at all. Now that these 4 puppet beasts came out, Yang Kai knew that the Chenny sect had developed a lot in the past few years. Each of these 4 puppet beasts has the power comparable to the peak of Daoyuan, and should be the prefecture level in Chenny sect. Puppet. With the secret codes of exercises that Yang Kai took back from Emperor Tiangu, the disciples of Chenny sect are far from being able to compare in the way of refining puppets or envoy puppets. He thought that Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were no match for 2 fists, but now it seems that he underestimated them. Chi. The swords were shining brightly, and they slashed at Yi Jinghan and Du Xian one after another. The sword lights were as solid as real ones. If they were really slashed, Yi Jinghan and Du Xian would definitely not feel better. But the two of them didn't even show any signs of mobilizing the source of body protection, they just mobilized the 4 puppet beasts with their hearts. That python-like puppet beast has bright scales on its body, and its body suddenly curled up, enveloping Yi Jinghan and Du Xian. Spark. Rumbling. At the same time, there was a flash of light on the lizard-like puppet beast, and the ground suddenly softened. It leapt into the air and went straight into the ground, disappearing without knowing where it went. The sound of howling wolves sounded, and the puppet wolf swayed with a blue light, and it rushed towards the 2 nearest disciples of Liang's sword sect, bearing its fangs, which scared the disciples of Liang's sword sect to rush to block with their swords. But at this moment, the most compact and flexible puppet bird drew a graceful arc, like a shocking thunder, directly piercing through the chest of the Liang sword sect disciple. The source of body protection is like paper, vulnerable to a single blow. PFF'd. The disciple of Liang's sword sect spewed out a mouthful of blood, feeling empty in his heart, as if something was missing. When he looked down, he saw a blood hole in his chest, faintly visible squirming internal organs. Under the siege of more than a dozen people, they met face to face, but the Liang sword sect died first. The onlookers in the distance were all shocked, and they were all shocked by the strength of these puppets of Chen Yizong. But anyone with a discerning eye can see that this is not just a mistake, but a suppression of strength. Although Liang's sword sect has the upper hand, each of the 4 puppet beasts is comparable to the 3rd level of Daoyuan. Zong's disciples have different levels of strength, and it is impossible to resist them. Back. Seeing this situation, the leading disciple also paled in shock, with a look of disbelief. Chenyi sect was destroyed, Liang's sword sect naturally captured a lot of spoils, and those puppets were the most. Now in Liang's sword sect, many disciples have the puppets of Chenyi sect, but those puppets can't compare with these 4 in front of them. The way of the puppet not only requires the power of the puppet itself, but also the corresponding skills and secret techniques to drive it. In other words, the power of the same puppet can be exerted in the hands of other people and in the hands of Chiba sect disciples, are quite different. Even though Liang's sword sect obtained many puppets as spoils of war and studied them for a period of time, they were unable to display the full strength of the puppets, which led them to think that these puppets were mediocre. Now that I saw you, I realized that I was very wrong. The disciples were already terrified, but now that they heard the order, they naturally cast their sword skills one after another, guarded their bodies, and retreated quickly. But at this moment, the puppet python protecting Yi Jinghan and Du Xian suddenly swung its tail like a steel whip, and there was a sound of killing. The tail is as thick as a bucket, and it is made of unknown material. The power of the tail is like a mountain collapse. Several disciples of Liang's sword sect who were unable to escape were swept by the tail of the python, and their abdomen collapsed instantly, with blood and internal organs spurting out of their mouths. Come out, seeing lifeless. I was lucky enough to escape the catastrophe, but before I could catch my breath, a big hole suddenly opened under my feet, and the puppet lizard that had disappeared before broke through the ground, opened its bloody mouth, and bit a Liang's sword sect with one bite. Disciple, dragged directly into the cave. The extremely shrill screams came from the ground, making people's hair stand on end and chills in their hearts. With the lessons learned from the past, those disciples flew into the air one after another. How dare they stand on the ground? But the air is not safe. The puppet wolf has been running around, and the puppet bird is as fast as lightning. Every time it pounces, it will bring out a piece of blood, and someone will die. Sword formation. The leading Liang sword sect disciple shouted palely. I thought the 2 Chiba sect disciples were just easy to catch, and they didn't pay much attention to them, but he really knew who was the wolf and who was the sheep after they really fought. In this short period of time, 6 or 7 of them have already died. Wouldn't they all die if this continues? With an order, the remaining Liang sword sect disciples immediately divided into several groups, set up a sword formation, and worked together to resist the frightening puppet beast. Du Xian and Yi Jinghan got the guardianship of the puppet python, killed 6 or 7 people in a row without any damage, and felt extremely happy. The grievance and anger of more than a year seemed to be released at this moment, and it became more and more handy to control the puppet beast. Du Xian laughed loudly and said, Liang sword sect, that's all. Although the tone was rampant, but he was distracted. Controlling the puppet beast and those disciples of Liang sword sect were inseparable. The one who destroys the gate, don't be presumptuous. The disciple of Liang sword sect yelled angrily. 6 or 7 people were killed in front of his own city gate, and he was provoked like this. Zong is afraid that he will no longer be able to gain a foothold in the northern territory. After experiencing the initial panic, each of them gradually gained a firm foothold. Their hearts were full of hatred, they only thought of tearing Du Xian and Yi Jinghan to pieces, and avenging their shame. Miman. Du Xian's expression turned violent, and he gritted his teeth and said, "If you didn't rely on others, how could your Liang sword sect have the ability to destroy my Chenyi sect? I, Du Xian, came here today, and I will die for my Chenyi sect. Many disciples ask for a fair way. That depends on whether you have the ability. Kill. Kill." Many disciples of Liang sword sect shouted in unison. The sword intent broke through the sky, and under the sword array, the sharp sword light slashed in the air, as if it was about to shatter the void. "Senior brother." Yi Jinghan's expression was solemn, and she pinched her with one hand, and the puppet python suddenly shrank its body, wrapping her and Du Xian tightly. When the sword glow cut down, sparks from the puppet python slashed everywhere, and the python's body shook, but it didn't hurt Yi Jinghan and Du Xian in the slightest. "If you want to be a coward, why come to my Liang city to embarrass yourself?" The Liang sword sect disciple sneered, waved his hands and shouted, "Cut again." Chi 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 chi. A series of shocking sword lights cut down continuously, and the beaten puppet python couldn't move at all. Even the strongest puppet couldn't withstand such an attack, and countless cracks appeared soon. The onlookers talked a lot, and they all felt that the two Chenyizong were a little too big. Since they escaped, why bother to throw themselves into the trap? Now I am only afraid of the future. If they are really sensible people, they should find a place to hide and strengthen their cultivation, in order to make a comeback in the future, so as to avenge their hatred. Ha 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 ha. Seeing that Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were helpless to fight back, the Liang sword sect disciple burst into laughter. "Let's see how long you can last." Bang! The ground suddenly split open, and the puppet lizard that had been disappearing suddenly appeared, shaking its head and rushing towards the sword array, and on the head of the puppet lizard, a person stood with its head held high, relying on the wind to resist the wind, whoever it was if it wasn't Du Xian. When many disciples of Liang sword sect were shocked. Although they didn't know what Du Xian was doing rushing over with an appearance of disregarding life and death, they were obviously uneasy and out of good intentions, and immediately mobilized their power to blast Du Xian. Du Xian didn't hide, he just showed a sneer. Chenyizong's puppet technique is so exquisite. In the void, someone suddenly gave a voice of admiration, as if they had seen something. More than one person saw the clues. At this moment, a pair of eyes hidden in the darkness were staring at Du Xian standing on the head of the puppet lizard, with incredible expressions on his face and shock in his heart. To be continued. This text is provided by the Dawn Update Group at c.not.aaaa. Chapter 2671. How high is the mountain? The sword light flickered, the sword energy was vertical and horizontal, and the power of the sword formation exploded. The dazzling light seemed to be able to shine through the past and present, completely covering a large area at the city gate. Du Xian, who bears the brunt, cannot avoid it, and countless raging energies turn into strangling power, enveloping him. In an instant, Du Xian fell apart. Ha ha ha, overestimate one's strength. The leading disciple of Liang sword sect thought that Du Xian had some trump card when he saw Du Xian attacking in such a threatening manner, but he didn't know that it was only thunder and rain, and a round of sword array attacked. The enemy was already decapitated, and immediately burst out laughing. As soon as the laughing sound started, he instinctively sensed something was wrong. His complexion changed, and he stared at the torn Du Xian with wide eyes, as if seeing some unbelievable scene. He said in horror, "Puppet." This Du Xian, who has no hesitation and regards death as his own, rushed towards them, is not a living person but a puppet. It's just that this puppet was refined so delicately that it was completely indistinguishable from a real person. During the battle, he didn't have time to distinguish it carefully, and now he discovered the clue after dismembering the opponent's body. Explosion. A low shout, like the voice of the underworld, rang in everyone's ears. On the body of the chopped-up puppet Du Xian, traces of scorching light suddenly flickered, and instantly became extremely bright. The extremely dangerous atmosphere spread like a tsunami. The Liang sword sect disciple's face changed drastically, and he shouted with all his strength, "Run!" While speaking, the sharp sword in his hand turned, and layers of impregnable sword intention swayed, guarding the whole body, stepping a little, and retreating rapidly. Boom-a! There was a loud noise, and a glaring white ball exploded outside the city gate, covering a full radius of 100 feet, and the violent energy impact created a gust of wind, sweeping the void. A muffled groan sounded, but it stopped abruptly, and one after another life force was suddenly annihilated, symbolizing the fall of each warrior, which made the onlookers feel terrified and their faces turned pale. Shaoqing. The dust settled. At the gate of Liang City, a large pit with a depth of more than 10 feet and a radius of 100 feet appeared. The side of the pit was in a mess, and a large part of the city wall was broken. On the ground were burnt dead bodies and broken arms. Kachacha. The puppet python that has been circling in place, guarding Du Xian and Yi Jinghen is circling its body at this moment, raising its head slightly. The scarlet snake core kept swallowing. And at its curled abdomen, Yi Jinghen and Du Xian still stood there, unscathed. On the messy ground, a figure staggered up. It was the leading disciple of Liang's sword sect just now. He was the strongest among many disciples, and he was the fastest at seeing opportunities, so even though he was hurt by the puppet's self-destruct some injuries. But he finally saved his life. Just when he stood up, the light in front of him dimmed. Someone stood in front of him. Looking up, it was Du Xian. Looking at each other, this disciple of Liang's sword sect was about to burst into tears, and shouted angrily, "You are cheating." He swung his sword to cut at Du Xian, but when Fang made a move, he felt unbearable pain all over his body. The strength of his body was not turning around well, and his face became paler and paler. That puppet Du Xian's self-destruction was extremely powerful, almost equal to the self-destruction of a martial artist at the peak of Daoyuan realm. Many disciples of Liang's sword sect were extremely close at that time. The entire army was almost wiped out by this explosion. Even if he was lucky enough to save his life, he would not be having a good time right now. Du Xian's eyes were red, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Compared to the Liang sword sect's work with my Chenny sect, this is nothing, it's just interest. No matter whether Liang's sword sect was instigated or not, they are all murderers. Du Xian naturally will not have any mercy for him." While speaking, he slapped this disciple of Liang's sword sect on the head with a slap in the face, wanting to kill him quickly. The younger generation is presumptuous. This is Liang City, how dare you kill someone fiercely? At the same time as an angry shout came, an old figure suddenly stretched across the sky, and with a wave of his hand, he grabbed Du Xian. A sense of imperial power spread, and Du Xian felt his whole body froze. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move. Emperor prestige. Du Xian's expression changed, knowing that what he did just now had attracted a strong man, but this person didn't seem to be the suzerain of Liang's sword sect, and he didn't know what the other party's intention was when he jumped out. What does it matter? You are so bloodthirsty at such a young age. What if you grow up? The old man will take you back to resolve the evil. The old man seemed to be explaining his shot, and when the words fell, the big hand had already grabbed Du Xian's head. In the void, several figures flickered, but they rushed towards Yi Jinghen who was standing there. Chenny sect, a mere small sect, probably no one would have cared about it in the past. The uproar during this period is also because of Liang's sword sect's publicity. However, the way of puppets is an outsider way after all, and even if it has some uses, it cannot attract attention. But today, after witnessing the puppet technique performed by Du Xian and Yi Jinghen, these hidden emperors did not dare to underestimate anything. The two Chenny sect remnants, relying only on some puppets, are actually wandering around. If such a good thing can be obtained, it will definitely enhance the strength of one's own sect. So in an instant, Yi Jinghen and Du Xian became favorites, and many people made up their minds to take these two people back and dig out the secret of Chen Yizong's refinement of imperial envoy puppets. Where is the old thing so brazen? A cold snort sounded, and an elite vigor suddenly appeared towards the old man, like a dragon rushing towards him from the sea. The old man's heart skipped a beat, and he instinctively sensed the danger. He no longer cared about catching Du Xian, and hurriedly mobilized his strength to slap towards that vigor. 70% to 80% of his strength was instantly mobilized. Boom-a. Amidst the muffled sound, the old man staggered and fell back a few steps. His face suddenly turned pale, his chest was filled with qi and blood, and almost no mouthful of blood spewed out. He stared in the direction of the source of the attack with a deep shock in his heart. He shouted, "Who is your excellency?" Yang Kai sneered and didn't answer, but volleyed a few palms towards Yi Jinghen. After a few slaps, several sneaky figures who were groping towards Yi Jinghen suddenly appeared, and all of them had ugly faces. But without the suppression of the old man, Du Xian's source of energy was activated again, and he slapped the disciple of the Liang sword sect who was still alive into a meat paste. Feeling extremely happy, he raised his head to the sky and screamed. Yang Kai glanced over, turned around each Emperor Senior stage, and said, "Which one is the sect master of Liang Sword Sect?" There was silence and no one answered. Yi Jinghan walked over and said in a low voice, "That person is not here." When Liang Sword Sect invaded Chenyi Sect that day, Yi Jinghan also met Li Qingyan and recognized his appearance. Yang Kai snorted coldly, "Have you become a turtle?" He was also a little curious. Liang Sword Sect had been killed so many people, why the suzerain hadn't come forward. This was a bit different from what he had imagined, and he couldn't help feeling a little annoyed. "Boy, who are you?" The old man suffered a lot from Yang Kai's hands, asked Yang Kai what to say but didn't answer, and suddenly couldn't hold back his face. Yang Kai was in a bad mood, glanced at him coldly, and snorted, "When you are old, you should go back and take care of yourselves, jumping around carefully." Presumptuous. The old man was furious, thinking that he is also the master of the sect, and now he is humiliated by a young man like this. It is simply unbearable. If it is not for Yang Kai's strength, he might as well live with him a few tricks, let him know what it means to be old but get stronger. "Which family's disciple are you? Why are you so arrogant? Didn't your adults teach you how to behave?" A middle-aged strong man frowned, somewhat displeased with Yang Kai's defiant attitude. Yang Kai grinned and said, "You want to teach me how to be a man?" The middle-aged strong man snorted. "Young man, it's not a good thing to be too sharp. You must know that a mountain is higher than a mountain." Yang Kai waved his million sword, pointed at him and said, "If you don't accept it, come to fight, let me see how high your mountain is." The middle-aged strong man was angry, gritted his teeth and said, "It's unreasonable." The other Emperor Senior stages also shook their heads, thinking that this young man was just like a mad dog, catching and biting whomever he caught, but he didn't know that Yang Kai came here this time to make trouble, and he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to make trouble, so how can he restrain himself now that someone is coming to his door? However, the rightful lord did not show up for a long time, which made Yang Kai feel a little bit depressed, and with a long smile, he put away the million swords, and said, "It seems that you are just talking. If that is the case, then go away, don't delay not much time." He greeted Yi Jinghan and Du Xian, swept away his spiritual sense, fixed his eyes on the direction of the city lord's mansion, and said loudly, "Since Sect Master Li has avoided seeing him, then this young master will pay a visit." As he spoke, he straightened up and led Yi Jinghan and Du Xian towards the city lord's mansion. Many Emperor Prestige Realm looked at each other, and they all speculated about his intentions, and they were also puzzled in their hearts. I don't know where the two remnants of Chen Yizong found the Emperor Prestige Realm, and they dared to enter Longtan alone, and their strength was extremely powerful from the vulgar look. It seems that Liang Sword Sect is in serious trouble this time, and I don't know if the auction can still be held as scheduled. After witnessing the puppet art performed by Du Xian and Yi Jinghan, these emperors were extremely interested in that day's puppet, and they all felt that it would be worthwhile to buy one or two back. Emperor Senior Realm is not easy to promote, but a puppet comparable to Emperor Senior Realm can be bought back. It is ready-made and usable, but it needs to consume some source crystals. For a while, many people were worried about gains and losses, lest the auction would be disturbed by Yang Kai. But then again, after all, this is other people's business, at most they just watch the fun. If they really want to let them intervene, they don't have the intention. In front of the city lord's mansion, a group of Liang Sword Sect disciples were trembling as if facing a formidable enemy, their faces turned pale. Dozens of senior brothers died in battle in front of the city gate. They didn't get the news. They thought that the suzerain would definitely not let it go, and would definitely take action to teach those two Chenyi sect remnants a lesson, but they didn't know that the suzerain didn't respond until now. Seeing Yang Kai lead the people walking step by step, many Liang Sword Sect disciples sweated from their palms, looking at them vigilantly and fearfully. The breeze was blowing, stirring up bursts of killing intent, making people's hands and feet feel cold, and their whole body icy cold. To be continued. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis. Chapter 2672 Fish Hooked. Form the formation. With a sharp shout, nearly 300 Liang Sword Sect disciples moved around, stepped on the mysterious square, and formed a heaven-shaking sword formation in an instant. It seems that what stood in front of the city lord's mansion was not 300 warriors, but a world-shattering sword. The cold sword intent could be clearly felt by all the warriors in Liang City. Yang Kai looked at the sword array in front of him contemptuously, and said with a sneer, "Sect Master Li, is this how your sect treats guests?" If the other party said yes, then he didn't mind killing the 300 people. Although this sword array is impressive, it can't stop his pace. Inside the city lord's mansion, a gentle voice came, "Let them in." Yang Kai had already hit the door, and Li Qingyan couldn't avoid it no matter what, but to everyone's surprise, Li Qingyan didn't intend to embarrass Yang Kai, but instead let many disciples let him go. Metropolitan, the Daoyuan third layer who presided over the sword array looked back at the city lord's mansion with an incredulous expression, as if he felt that he heard it wrong. This sword array was set up, combined with the power of 300 disciples, even if the Emperor Senior Realm broke into it, it would have to peel off the skin. Yang Kai and his group committed murder at the city gate, and they could not share the hatred of Liang sword sect. Can easily let go. Let them in. Li Qingyan's voice came again, but it was more majestic. The disciple who presided over the sword formation changed his face for a while, then gritted his teeth and shouted, "Let go." Clatter. The crowd actively dispersed to both sides, and the amazing sword intent suddenly weakened a lot. Once the crowd moved, the sword array would naturally be unable to maintain. A wise choice. A strange color flashed in Yang Kai's eyes, and he secretly felt that this Li Qingyan was also interesting. Amidst many hostile gazes, Yang Kai led Yi Jinghan and Du Xian into striding in. Unlike Yang Kai's composure, Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were both nervous, swallowing their saliva secretly. Yuan Li urged him not to send out, because he was afraid that Liang's sword sect and the group would backtrack and attack suddenly. But until they walked into the city lord's mansion, everything was safe and sound. The two looked at each other and exhaled involuntarily. In the main hall of the city lord's mansion, a figure sat cross-legged. That figure was as tall and straight as a sword, quite like a master of a generation. In front of the figure, a 3-foot green peak lay across. For some reason, it kept making clanging sounds, and followed Yang as he got closer. The sound became more and more urgent and dense, as if it was warning something. Yang Kai couldn't help but look at the sword a few more times. Li Qingyan still closed his eyes tightly, and suddenly stretched out his hand to caress, and suddenly calmed down on the 3-foot Qingfeng, and said, "The Yushu sword is the treasure of my Liang sword sect, and only the suzerain can wear it. It has the ability to warn. The stronger the enemy is, the more urgent its warning sound will be, and Li has avoided many dangers by relying on it, but it is a pity that he will not be able to avoid it this time." Sect Master Li. Yang Kai clasped his fist at him and nodded slightly. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian who were standing behind Yang Kai had red eyes, gritted their teeth and glared at him, looking like they wanted to kill them quickly. "Who is your excellency?" Li Qingyan looked up at Yang Kai. "Unnamed Junior. Even if you talk about Sect Master Li, you don't know." Yang Kai replied lightly. Li Qingyan said, "Reputation is something that comes out of nothing. After today, your destiny will definitely spread." Yang Kai smiled and said, "The false name of the floating era is full of dust, life is like a dream, and martial arts are eternal." Li Qingyan shrank his eyes, and looked at Yang Kai with a burst of light in his eyes. He only felt that the words were like a heavy hammer hitting his heart, and it seemed that he had caught something somewhere, giving him a kind of the feeling of seeing the bright moon through the clouds. But after thinking about it carefully, he found nothing, and his brows could not help but frown. Sighing slightly, he said, "Sure enough, there are talents from generation to generation, and a new generation replaces the old ones." He looked slumped, as if he had been hit by something. He paused and said, "Your Excellency, you are here to stand up for Chen Yizong. If that's the case, let's make a move." Although Li feels that he is not an opponent, he is not just waiting to die man of. Yang Kai turned his head to look at Yi Jinghan and Du Xian, and asked, "Do you want me to kill him? Nod your heads, and I will take his life." Du Xian and Yi Jinghan gritted their teeth, the redness in their eyes became more and more intense, and the cold murderous intent became solid. It was this person who brought a large number of Liang sword sect disciples into Chenyi sect a year ago and slaughtered them wantonly. I don't know how many disciples of Chenyi sect died at his hands. In the past year, the two of them wanted to kill all the time. This person, to avenge the dead brothers and sisters, but now that the enemy is in front of them, they also believe that Yang Kai can do what he says and take his life, but this head can't be nodded. Seemingly connected, Yi Jinghan closed her eyes and said softly, "Senior brother." Du Xian also took a deep breath, and said, "You should avenge your family's destruction with your own hands." Yang Kai smiled, looked at them and said, "Then you have to work hard to cultivate, they are Emperor Senior Realm." Du Xian gritted his teeth and said, "We are younger than him. Youth is the greatest capital." Li Qingyan nodded slightly, looked at the two with complicated eyes, and said, "I am waiting for you at any time." Du Xian pointed at him and said, "Don't worry, Liang sword sect will be destroyed by my Du Xian one day, and your head will be mine too." After saying this, Du Xian seemed to let out a sigh of relief, with a complicated expression on his face. Li Qingyan said slowly, "Sect Master Yi is not dead." What? Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were shocked when they heard the words, and the former trembled with excitement. Is this true? Li Qingyan nodded and said, "Sect Master Yi is now in my Liang sword sect. If you want to see him, you can pick him up at any time." Yi Jinghan was stunned, and burst into tears. Du Xian took her into his arms and asked coldly, "Why?" Li Qingyan frowned, and said, "You and I have no deep hatred between the two sects. This sect has no choice but to take action against the Chenyi sect. If someone gets what they want, it doesn't matter whether Sect Master Yi lives or dies." "What do you mean?" Du Xian looked at him blankly. Yang Kai's expression changed, and he said, "It is true that someone instructed you. Is it the Star God Palace?" Li Qingyan's face changed, and he closed his mouth, looking extremely taboo. Seeing his expression, Yang Kai knew that he was afraid, and immediately changed the subject. "You just said that someone got what they wanted. What does that person want?" Li Qingyan shook his head and did not answer. Yang Kai snorted. "Sect Master Li thinks that this young master is easy to talk to. A mere Liang sword sect, this young master can destroy it with a flip of his hand." Li Qingyan said solemnly, "The Liang sword sect and I are just mere pawns. Why do you have to make things difficult for me? If you are not satisfied with your excellency, you will destroy my Liang sword sect. If you are satisfied, others will destroy my Liang sword sect. It's just a word of death." Yang Kai sneered again and again, and said, "It seems that the people behind Sect Master Li are really good, and they are so dreadful." Li Qingyan shook his head and said, "Your Excellency, there is no need to test anything." Yang Kai snorted and said, "Okay, since Sect Master Li is so forthright, then I won't embarrass you, I'll just ask you what you can reveal. Where is the Star Master you captured in Chenyi sect now?" Li Qingyan said, "Since your Excellency has some guesses, why bother to ask? My Liang sword sect is just a pawn pushed to the front of the screen. The people caught and the things robbed are not in my sect's hands." Yang Kai's face sank when he heard this. Although he had some guesses, he was still somewhat disappointed when he heard Li Qingyan's answer. If I.O. is imprisoned in this Liang city or in Liang Zhanzong, then he can save people now, but the key is that I.O. is not here, and Li Qingyan probably doesn't know where I.O. is being imprisoned. The so-called option was nothing more than a means introduced by someone taking advantage of Liang sword sect's territory and identity. Yang Kai pondered for a moment, and said, "Besides that Star Lord, who else did you kidnap?" Li Qingyan thought for a while and said, "There are still a few warriors from the lower plane, but they are not as important as that Star Master." "Are they alive or dead now?" Yang Kai asked, suppressing the excitement in his heart. Li Qingyan shook his head and said, "I don't know." Yang Kai frowned and thought for a moment. The last question, what does the person behind the scenes want? Li Qingyan still shook his head. "I don't know." In Liang City, in an attic, a pale old man was sitting cross-legged. This old man looked like he was on the verge of death, as if he might die at any time, but he was full of energy and blood, and the energy was emitted intentionally or unintentionally. His aura actually reached the terrifying third-layer Emperor Senior realm. Beside the old man, a beautiful woman in palace costume was kneeling on the ground, her hair disheveled and her expression was sluggish, as if she had suffered some torture. Her complexion was pale. From time to time, an expression of extreme pain flashed across the face of the beautiful woman in palace attire. Tang tang tang, there were footsteps, and then there was a knock on the door. "Come in," the old man shouted. The door was pushed open, and a middle-aged man entered in response, glanced at the beautiful woman in palace attire kneeling beside him, quickly looked away, and clasped his fists and said, "Master." The old man looked up at him and said, "How?" The middle-aged man said, "The fish is hooked." As soon as this remark came out, the body of the beautiful woman in palace costume who had been kneeling on the ground trembled, and the old man's eyes flashed brightly, and he laughed and said, Okay, very good, it's not in vain for the old man to plan for a year. It is here." The middle-aged man said, "Master, that kid is only at the first level of Emperor Senior. Since he is here, let the disciples take him down. Forgive him for not making any waves." The old man smiled slightly, shook his head and said, Don't underestimate that kid, he is a person who is proficient in the power of space, although he is only at the first level of Emperor Zun, but if he is not fully prepared, even if the old man makes a move, he may not be able to take it. Get him down. The middle-aged man seemed a little unconcerned, feeling that his master looked too high on that kid. He is at the second level of the Emperor Senior realm, and the other party is at the first level, so he can take it down casually, so why bother? The old man didn't know what he was thinking. He glanced at the beautiful woman in palace costume kneeling beside him and said, "Your junior sister Qingxi has been with him for a long time, she knows the kid's strength best, but if you don't believe me, just ask." To be continued. Closing parenthesis. Chapter 2673 Girl blocking the way. Hearing this, the middle-aged man turned his head to look at the beautiful woman kneeling beside him and said, "Junior sister Hua, tell me, if I do it myself, can I take down that kid?" This beautiful woman is the Hua Qingxi who separated from Yongkai in the Sea of Aa Broken Stars. When she separated, she was only at the third level of Daoyuan, but she got some opportunities in the Sea of Aa Broken Stars, and now she has been promoted to Emperor Senior. But at this moment, she doesn't have the honor that the Emperor should have, but looks like a prisoner. Hearing the middle-aged man's question, Hua Qingxi pursed her lips and turned her head aside without answering. "Junior sister Hua, you're dishonest again." The middle-aged man saw him, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth, and he suddenly pinched a strange spell with both hands. The next moment, a scream came from Hua Qingxi's mouth. She seemed to have suffered the most unbearable torture in the world. Her pretty face became distorted in an instant due to the pain, and the sweat on her forehead dripped down rolling down, the clothes were soaked in an instant. "Master!" She forced herself to kneel down to the old man's feet and shouted. The old man was as motionless as a mountain, without raising his eyebrows, as if he didn't hear or see anything. The middle-aged man sneered. "As a master's disciple, you actually protect an outsider so much. If the master was not merciful, you would have already killed you. Now you are allowed to make up for it, but you are stubborn. As a brother I really can't bear to watch it, and I will give you some punishment, eh?" "Master." Hua Qingxi's voice trembled, her face was extremely pale, she gritted her teeth and said, "If you want to return that thing, I'll go and tell him, and ask master to take it. Stop and let him die, he is not an unreasonable person, and the disciple has some friendship with him, and he will definitely be able to persuade him. Please, master, give the disciple a chance." Presumptuous. The middle-aged man saw that she was tortured and did not beg for mercy. Instead, he was justifying others, and suddenly became furious. The law changed again. Hua Qingxi screamed immediately, and the whole person curled up. The old man sighed slightly, with a look of helplessness on his face, and said, "It's really a girl who doesn't want to stay." She turned her elbows all the way out. After waving his hand, the middle-aged man accepted the decision. The old man stretched out his hand, held Hua Qingxi up, and said, "The old man knows that you can be promoted to Emperor Zun, all thanks to him, but don't forget, who taught you to raise you? Yes, it's the master. The disciples will never forget the kindness of the master's nurturing." Hua Qingxi opened her weak eyelids and said. The old man nodded and said, "It's good if you know. If it's something else, the old man may not be able to agree with you. After all, you are also in the emperor realm now. As the old man's disciple, the old man has honor on his face, but this matter is very important. The fewer people who know about it, the better. The old man sent you to inquire about the news, and he also valued you, but you let the old man down." Hearing this, Hua Qingxi's eyes flashed guilt. Although she couldn't help herself at that time, she was planted with a soul seal by Yongkai and captured into mysterious small world, but she did live up to the high expectations of her master. Later, even though Yongkai gave her back her freedom, she no longer wanted to report the matter, because Yongkai was kind to her. So of course she couldn't repay her kindness, she just wanted to hide her name in the future and never return to the Star God Palace. It's good that Hua Qingxi died before. Unexpectedly, the master sent his senior brother Wu Ming to find Chen Yizong, not only captured himself, but even caused Chen Yizong to be destroyed. She was planted with a secret technique, and she didn't remember what she had revealed to her master, but she knew that Chen Yizong's extermination was caused by herself, and it was also a means for her master to lure Yongkai out. Because among the Chenyi sect, there are a few people that Yongkai valued very much. As long as they are captured, Yongkai will definitely not let it go. Facts have proved that this clever move was not wrong, and now Yongkai was indeed attracted to Liang City and entered the urn. That kid dares to steal the old man's treasure. How can the old man tolerate him? Qingxi, don't worry too much. After this matter is over, go back to the Star God Palace to retreat with the old man. The old man waved his hand, although his tone it was plain, but there was a faint light of excitement flashing in those eyes. A year ago, when Wu Ming brought Hua Qingxi back to the Xingshan Palace, he used secret techniques to force Hua Qingxi to reveal many secrets. Not only did he find out who owned the treasure he lost, but also learned who owned it. There is actually a secret treasure of space that covers a vast area. If it's just like this, that's all. Although the space secret treasure is precious and rare, it is only a space secret treasure. If you don't practice space supernatural powers, you may not be able to drive it at will. The key is that there are many rare objects among the secret treasures of the space. He is particularly concerned about the two sacred trees, one full of vitality, and the other gold and silver. As the elder of the Star God Palace, the old man has a powerful cultivation of the third level of Emperor Zun. He has lived for most of his life and has never seen anything. After carefully listening to the characteristics of the two sacred trees, it is almost certain that one of them is the legendary tree of immortality. The tree of immortality, it is rumored that if one can refine it, one can achieve immortality, which is a great temptation for any warrior. He is old, and he thought that there would be no hope of breakthrough in this life, but he didn't want a chance to come to him suddenly. If he can get the tree of immortality and refine it, then he is very likely to become a great emperor, and then he will be able to sit on an equal footing with Mingyu Great Emperor. As for the gold and silver sacred trees, he also had some vague guesses, but he didn't dare to be too sure. But no matter what, these two sacred trees are treasures of heaven and earth, and it would be a great fortune for anyone to get one of them, but he didn't expect now it is gathered in the hands of one person. As long as he can kill that person, such a treasure will be his. After refining the tree of immortality, the world is so big, where can it go? The old man did not disclose such a confidential matter to anyone, including Wu Ming, whom he relied on the most. Wu Ming only regarded his master as having many plans for a treasure that was lost many years ago. Secretly made up his mind, Hua Qingxi would have to silence after this time. Hua Qingxi's expression darkened, knowing that it was useless to say anything now. Wu Ming stood aside, glanced at Hua Qingxi, sneered, and said teasingly, "Junior sister Hua, don't you have a crush on that kid?" Hua Qingxi looked up at him angrily, gritted her teeth and said, "Stop talking nonsense." The bitch still dares to talk back. Wu Ming's face twitched, and he wanted to pinch the magic arts with a single palm, showing Hua Qingxi some strength. Hua Qingxi's body was planted with mind-stimulating GU, life and death were all in his mind. How could Hua Qingxi be so presumptuous in front of him? Okay. The old man raised his hand slightly, stopping Wu Ming's intentions. Go to the auction venue and arrange it carefully. There is no room for mistakes in this matter. To deal with a martial artist who is proficient in space power, even a person like the old man dare not be careless. When Yin Lesheng wanted to deal with Yang Kai that day, he had to set up a large formation to isolate the world. How could the old man be negligent? An accident is enough to make Yang Kai escape, although he has someone Yang Kai wants, but he can't guarantee that Yang Kai will obediently submit. Wu Ming hated to stop, stared at Hua Qingxi coldly, thinking to let you be safe for a while. After this matter is over, I will ask the master to ask you to love you. After Wu Ming left, the old man said, your senior brother is used to being arrogant, so don't blame him. Hua Qingxi said that she didn't dare, and her heart was bitter. Now that she looks like this, with this kind of treatment, how can she still have the slightest feeling of master and apprentice, brother and sister? Master is guarding against her like a thief, and senior brother also dislikes her. The sky is big and the earth is big, what should we do? The cultivation base has broken through to Emperor Zun, but the direction of life suddenly becomes confused. What's your name, boy? Outside the city lord's mansion, Yang Kai and his party just came out when they were stopped by one person. Standing in front of her was a young girl. She didn't look very old, about 17 or 18 years old. She was petite and exquisite, wearing a clean light blue dress, although she was not big. But her figure was very predictable, her chest swollen, as if about to tear her clothes out, her slender waist is full of grip, and her plump buttocks are upright and round. The girl has a beautiful face, but she has a heroic spirit of her own. Standing in front of Yang Kai, looking up at him with an old-fashioned look. Yang Kai was stunned, looked left and right, pointed to his nose and said, talk to me. He was sure that he didn't know this girl, and he didn't see her when he entered the city just now, and he didn't know what he wanted to do when he suddenly blocked the way. The girl's eyebrows were condensed, and she said angrily, "Who else can it be? We know each other." Yang Kai looked at her with a strange expression. The girl said impatiently, "If you ask me, just answer, what are you talking about so much?" Yang Kai raised his eyebrows and said, "If you ask me, I will answer, how shameless am I?" This little girl was also inexplicable, she stopped in front for no reason, and she still acted like a boss, which really made Yang Kai feel bad. Ying Fei grinned and smiled. "Yang Xiaofeng is handsome, a dragon among men, I'm afraid someone fell in love with you at first sight." La. Before Ying Fei could finish his sentence, a fist suddenly brushed past his cheek. If Ying Fei hadn't dodged it quickly, this punch would have hit his face. The one who punched was naturally the girl, and with this blow, both Yang Kai and Ying Fei couldn't help but change their faces slightly. Because the power of this punch was terrifying, the void seemed to have been bombarded, but the girl seemed to have just hit it randomly, with no force at all. Ying Fei's face darkened, and he felt a little terrified in his heart. Although he is a demon king with good strength, but if he really gets a punch like that, he will be seriously injured if he doesn't die. The girl is young, petite and exquisite, but she doesn't seem to have such great strength. A mere demon king, if you dare to mention that word again, you will be killed immediately. The girl warned Ying Fei, and slowly withdrew her fist. Ying Fei was really terrified now, a pair of falcon-like eyes burst out with frightening light, covering the girl, as if he wanted to see the depths of her soul. He has been hiding his breath and following Yang Kai's side without showing any flaws at all. Even the General Emperor Senior 3-layer may not be able to see his depth, but this young girl not only sees it through at a glance, but also knows that he is a demon king. This vision can be called terrifying. To be continued. This text is provided by the Dawn Update Group at ch8296929 Dian Hanji. Chapter 2674 Infinite Strength. After hesitating for a while, Ying Fei said, "Which word?" He was puzzled by the girl's words. He didn't know what he said just now that offended her. Need to read the book, but Ying Fei is not frightened. Anyway, he is one of the 32 demon kings in the ancient land. Even if the girl's cultivation is not ordinary, is he easy to get along with? If they really fight, Ying Fei is not afraid of her. At the same time as the questioning, the divine sense was released and scanned the girl, wanting to see how her cultivation was. Yang Kai was also doing this, but what surprised the two of them was that the girl was clearly standing there, but she found nothing after searching with her spiritual sense, not to mention her cultivation, even she couldn't detect it. There are only two possibilities in this situation. One is that the young girl's cultivation base is much higher than Ying Fei and Yang Kai, and the second is that she is carrying a treasure, which hinders the prying of others. The first scenario is unlikely. Anyway, Ying Fei is also a demon king. The one who is more powerful than him is either the Holy Spirit or the Great Emperor. This girl is young and her cultivation level is definitely not up to that level. Alien treasure guard. This girl has a lot of background, Yang Kai thought to himself. He didn't know what kind of family he came from. "You'll understand when you say that word." The girl sneered. She didn't answer Ying Fei's question directly. She turned her head to look at Yang Kai and said, "What's your name?" Quote. She seems to be obsessed with Yang Kai's name, she must ask clearly. But before Yang Kai could answer, she suddenly waved her hand and said, "That's all, no need to answer." "Are you kidding me?" Yang Kai's forehead was throbbing with blue veins, thinking that this girl must be sick, stopped him for no reason, and said these nonsensical words, and his heart was full of ignorance and karma. "Rise." The girl snorted coldly. "What are you? You are worthy of my girl's teasing." Yang Kai said with a dark face. "Then I don't know who the girl is." He has seen a lot of arrogant and domineering guys, but he has never seen such a guy. This is no longer indescribable. It is simply too self-centered and completely disregarding others' thoughts. "The one who wants your life." The girl replied coldly. Yang Kai was shocked again and again. "You want to kill me? Is it the first time we meet? What hatred?" The girl frowned seriously, nodding. "Although it's the first time we met, but you have things that don't belong to you. You shouldn't refine those things, you will die if you refine those things." "What?" Yang Kai looked blank. "You will know when I break your bones," the girl said after a while. Suddenly he swung his fist towards Yang Kai. That pink fist was extremely small, white as jade, crystal clear, it looked like a lover's flirting when he swung it. But the power of this punch made Yang Kai's face suddenly change. A jet-black imprint was branded in the void. The space was shattered all of a sudden, and the violent punch was like a huge vortex, pulling Yongkai towards the center of the vortex, trying to smash him to pieces. When the young girl swung her fist at Yingfei earlier, Yongkai hadn't felt it yet. He only knew that this little girl looked small, but her strength was boundless, but he really took the brunt of it, only to realize that he had underestimated her. This kind of power is simply not something such a little girl can possess. If it wasn't for the Rhino Thunder Demon King transforming into a real body to burst out such power, Yongkai wouldn't be surprised, but this power actually appeared on a little girl who was only 17 or 18 years old. Yongkai's heart was awe-inspiring, and he thought to himself that the world is full of talented people. This little girl who suddenly appeared is so amazing, the world is so big, and there are so many capable people and strange people. Young Master Yang, be careful. Yingfei reached out and grabbed the girl's fist when his face changed drastically. I can't stop it. Yongkai's expression sank, and he urged all his strength to meet him with a punch. All over the sky, the shadow of fists exploded at once. Accompanied by a muffled groan, Yingfei retreated more than a dozen feet, and that eagle claw was slightly twisted and trembled. Yongkai also had a burst of qi and blood in his chest, and there was a sound of bone cracking in his arm. The two joined forces to strike, but they couldn't stop the berserk force. The girl didn't give up after punching out, instead she moved her waist and blasted out another punch, hitting Yongkai's head straight. Seeing that posture was to take Yongkai's life in one fell swoop, although the moves were fierce, but her expression was calm, not much murderous intent, extremely weird. But this is not to say that the girl does not want to kill Yongkai, but a kind of casual performance. When the butcher kills cattle and sheep again, does he have to look murderous? The vortex of power swept over again. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian both exclaimed. Their figures involuntarily rushed towards the girl's fist, as if they were actively begging for death. This was really not what they wanted. The girl's cultivation was extremely high. She didn't care about their life and death when she punched. The two of them were just fish in a pond that got hurt. A body of source power couldn't be moved at all, and the two of them were like drowning children in the frenzy of power. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get rid of it. Seeing that his body was about to hit that pink fist, his body would be smashed to pieces in the next moment, and suddenly another fist came up from behind, and above that fist, colorful rays of light burst out, and streams of bitter sword energy flowed horizontally and vertically. Yongkai has pushed the Immortal 5 Elements sword chi to the extreme, and the Emperor Yuan came out violently. Boom-a-a! Amidst the loud noise, Yongkai drifted back. One fist was bloody and bloody, exposing white bones, but he pulled Yi Jinghan and Du Xian back with the help of the shock force from the contact of those fists. Wow! Behind Yongkai, a surge of remaining energy burst out, shaking his clothes into dust, revealing his strong back, his muscles squirming. Not only that, but the majestic city lord's mansion was also razed to the ground in an instant, and remained in the among them. Liang's sword sect disciples were killed and injured. Crazy! Yongkai glared at the girl. The girl frowned, and didn't force her anymore. She just glanced at Yongkai's bloody fist, the corners of her mouth slightly raised, showing a disdainful expression. Young Master Yang, Yingfei swayed, standing side by side with Yongkai, his eagle eyes flickering with murderous intent. He followed Yongkai back to the southern territory this time, mainly to protect Yongkai's safety. After all, Yongkai's relationship is too big. If something really happened, I'm afraid that the whole wild ancient land's demon king can't get around him. But he didn't want someone to hurt Yongkai in front of him. If this matter is reported back, how can Xie Wuwei and Zile let it go? I'm afraid they will be scolded bloody by the two of them. Take care of them. Yongkai threw Yi Jinghan and Du Xian to Yingfei, and turned his head to look around. The movement just now attracted the attention of a lot of Emperor's senior stage. At this moment one or two all flew over, watching from a distance, and seeing that it was Yongkai who had clashed with others and was injured, all of them looked pale. Hi, I feel very happy. After all, what Yongkai did at the city gate before was too arrogant and domineering, and he had already offended everyone. How can he not be unhappy to see Yongkai suffer a loss, especially the old man and middle-aged man who had been humiliated by Yongkai before? It is even more joyful. But what surprised everyone even more was the identity of the young girl. It was surprising that this young girl could actually hurt Yongkai at such a young age. I want to fight. Yongkai greeted and flew out of the city first. This is Liang City after all. Judging by the strength of this young girl, if I really want to fight her here, I am afraid that many innocent people will be hurt, and Yongkai does not want to expose his strength too much in front of so many people. many. All right, I'll let you understand. The girl nodded when she heard the words, her small body swayed, and followed Yang Kai. Young Master Yang. Ying Fei's face was darkened, and his body was shaking and he wanted to chase after him. But Yang Kai's words came from far away. You don't need to follow, and no one else is allowed to follow. A little girl, come back when I clean up. Ying Fei paused, hearing the anger in Yang Kai's words. Whoever was making trouble like this for no reason would probably not be in a good mood. It's just that Yang Kai's order is really embarrassing for him. If he doesn't follow the past, he is afraid that Yang Kai will have any accidents, and if he follows the past, he will make Yang Kai unhappy. After a moment of hesitation, many Emperor Senior stages shook their bodies, wanting to follow them out to watch the excitement. Ying Fei snorted coldly, and his monster aura rolled around, bursting out in an instant. Hissa A. Demon King. The complexions of many Emperor Senior stages changed drastically, and they all froze in place as if they had been cast with a fixing spell. Most of them are at the first level of Emperor Venerable. How can they not be frightened now that a strong man at the level of a Demon King suddenly appears in the city? The Demon King is comparable to the third level of Emperor Zun. If he really wants to kill, no one in Liang City can resist it. Go out if you want to die. Ying Fei coldly swept around the crowd, but all the Emperor Senior realm that he was eyeing were silent as if chilling, with panic on their faces. The Emperor Senior realm who looked at Yang Kai disliked him and who had some conflicts with Yang Kai was even more afraid. Earlier at the city gate, this Demon King had been following Yang Kai, and it was nothing special, but they didn't know until now. Although Yang Kai is domineering and arrogant, he also has the capital of domineering and arrogant. Fortunately, there was no real conflict with Yang Kai at that time, otherwise there would be no life left. It's troublesome. In a hidden corner, Wu Ming frowned tightly, staring at the direction where Ying Fei was, with a puzzled expression on his face. How could there be a Demon King? This time, Liang City's auction was mainly aimed at Yang Kai. If Yang Kai was only in the Emperor Senior realm, he believed that there would be nothing wrong with the master's arrangement, but now a powerful Demon King suddenly appeared. This matter may have changed. After hesitating for a while, Wu Ming quickly turned around, intending to report this matter to his master, to see what the old man had planned. A strong man at the Demon King level is no longer something he can ignore. This, my lord. Yi Jinghan and Du Xian were also stunned. Although they had been with Ying Fei for a few days, they never thought that this person who was always by Yang Kai's side like a bodyguard was actually a Demon King. Only then did he understand how Yang Kai had such confidence to break into Liang sword sect by himself. Now it seems that his biggest reliance is not his own strength, but this Demon King. With this Demon King in charge, there is nothing to worry about. To be continued. Opening parenthesis closing parenthesis.